Okay. Okay. I'm gonna have to clean the screen. All right, let's make sure this thing is up here. All right. Hold on, y'all. Let me make sure this little ring light thing is... Okay, I'm about to bring you up. Let's see if Ivory's here too. Pam, when Ivory... Oh, here. Perfect. Oh, no. Not no. All right. Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Hey,
Hey,
y'all. So I'm really excited to have you on the panel because I feel like your opinion is really, really needed because this is almost like a female dominated space in terms
That's what I
of the
see.
opinions.
I
And I
saw no
think
men
that,
really speaking out about this. I was really surprised. So I just did this on a whim like 3 or 4 days ago. And I'm like, oh my God, look at this influx. So I guess people do want to hear a male's perspective. So I'm like, why not?
so have you seen or heard about the FOYA?
Yes. In fact, that's one of the things that kind of got me more compelled to get involved with talking about the case and discussing it and also reading about what other people are saying about it. Because now a lot of the stuff in the FOIA is stuff that we kind of already knew, but kind of solidified for us and gave us more detail in that and just kind of really expanded on the entire personality and manipulative traits of Gypsy Rose herself and the dynamics that took place between her and Nicholas Godejohn. And again, it just got me to, really see a more like introspective look between what happened between them and just how groomed he was by her over a 2 year period, and just the way that she downplays her involvement is just comical when you read the FOIA documents because it's like she was running that show from start to finish, and she's just like, in the end, oh, I hate him. It's all his fault, and I didn't actually wield the weapon, so therefore, I'm not as involved. It's one of the biggest delusions that, that's why I can't believe she's free. She has not learned a thing since
Oh
she got out of
yeah,
prison.
nothing. Not a single thing has she learned. But for me, with the FOIA, one of the most interesting things that I think I personally feel like I came across was the fact that she had a surgery, and during that surgery, she had a seizure. And the doctor had said that she was paralyzed, but he didn't know if it was long term or short term. And
Right.
she said that when she got the feeling back in her legs, she did not tell her mom.
Yeah, I read a lot of the medical part of it is what I really wanted to know because there was always this back and forth between, was there medical abuse? Was there no medical abuse? There was a whole lot that kind of went along with that narrative. And then once, another thing on top of the FOIA was I discovered Becca Scoops, which is she's just a gift from God as far
Yes,
as I'm concerned. She
yes,
is one of the most I mean, I've mentioned her in many videos. Like, that is one of the most well researched channels if you ever want to do the
yes,
biggest
TV
rabbit.
quality.
Yeah, and she brings the receipts. And I even think she did an intro where Rod himself, on like a hot mic moment, said, like, even Becca Scoops, she's got merit. I'm like, wow, if Rod himself, if
Mhm.
Gypsy's dad himself can say that she has merit, I'm pretty sure that means that's almost like a
Yeah,
compliment.
no, that's huge. She is epic because there's a lot of things that she puts together um, that you look at it a different way, the way she explains it. But I think what's so interesting about this whole case is that there's so many moving parts to it that I feel like even had they have done like a deep dive investigation, I still think there would have been things that they would have missed because it's so
Yeah,
complex.
it is. There's a lot of twists. There's a lot of turns, and we know anything about a lot of. There's been a lot of police investigations where the ball has been dropped. I always say Becca Scoops and her partner would have made a better defense team than Nicholas
Man,
Godejohn's own lawyers.
I
I'm like,
agree with
how
you.
they weren't even allowed to
Yes.
bring up his autism in his trial. I'm like, what kind of crap is this? I'm like, how is that prejudicial? Like, I mean, because I know the law pretty well, but then again, I think the state of Missouri has some fundamental flaws because the son of Sam law, you know what that is, where you can't profit
Yes.
off your own crime. That doesn't apply there. So Gypsy making all the blood money right now is just perfectly legal. If she were here in New York
Yes.
City, where I'm from, this would not be going down right now, you
No,
know,
New
at
York
all.
would never,
No, no, no,
never let this happen. Like is not something that would get
They
by
don't
in New
stuff
York. In
in
fact,
jail.
she would have got the well. They don't have the penalty in New York anymore, do
no,
they?
no, 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 no. Death
Yeah,
penalty
they got
was
rid of it.
ruled out of here in the '90s.
Yeah,
Connecticut
that's
has
what I
it.
was
That's the
thinking.
closest. I think. I think a couple of the New England states still have the death penalty. In Connecticut, you get to choose your death penalty. I think you can get the firing squad, hanging, and the
That's what I
electric
heard.
chair.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you get to choose
which
there.
is
And
nuts.
these are, if you give us some options, it's like, hey, you just check which one you want. Check the boxes.
I want to answer this question really quick. Someone says Dee Dee's family should sue her. So there are a lot of clauses within lawsuits, and of course, there's always a statute of limitation.
Yes.
If Dee Dee's family had sued her, they only had a 2-year time from the time of the death. So
Yes.
that's up. And I honestly don't really feel like her family is invested enough to even try to do that.
I don't think so either. I
I
mean,
mean,
whether
maybe
I've heard things from like,
defamation.
did they actually, I don't know if this is true or not. Did they really flush her ashes down the toilet, or is this just something that was rumor? I mean,
But
I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm unsure. Like I've seen mixed things. Ivory has her own opinion. I'm gonna let Ivory talk because Ivory has had quite an opinion on it.
My honest opinion with this whole thing is the family is saying that they have the ashes, that they're in a box. Sir Morbid just went and raised money and bought them an urn for the ashes. However, they're
Okay.
still not in the urn. And I personally think that they may have. And that was just an excuse. They didn't want to sound bad, but I don't know that for fact.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. I always say, like, I said this in a couple of my videos, that the truth is usually somewhere down the middle. So it's like I usually hear two extremes, and it usually ends up being somewhere down the middle. So that sounds a little more reasonable to me. I think her family should have absolutely, because when it comes to like a wrongful death suit, a lot more evidence, and there's a lot more, you know what I mean, leeway when it comes to a wrongful death suit as
Hmm.
compared to like a criminal case. And I've seen this, work out in both ways, where someone gets convicted in a death suit, but then, you know what I mean? And usually what they do with a death suit is that's sort of like a trial run for a criminal case,
Hmm.
where a
Hmm.
prosecutor can look at that and be like, okay, well, if they can get a guilty
We'll
verdict
take this
for the
up.
death
Yeah.
suit, then I can take this to a criminal level. And if they like the evidence, if the evidence is damning enough, they can be like, hey, I can do that too. Except, again, your burden of proof is way more of a burden when it comes to a criminal case. So I know there's distinctions between the civil cases and the criminal.
I think
I think that she's.
had they had done that, this may have been picked up federally.
I believe so because of the attention that the case got. Because keep in mind,
Hmm.
one thing that another thing that Gypsy has a little delusion with is that she likens herself to like another Kim Kardashian, to like a Kardashian. She thinks she's a celebrity. It's just like, listen, those people come from wealthy, prominent families, or they're talented for some. Gypsy's not famous because she's talented at something, or because she did something for world peace, or because she's known for something amazing. No, if she did not have her mother unalived through her boyfriend, nobody would know who this woman is. And then because of all the scamming and all the, the faulty Munchausen by proxy narrative that was going on, and that was her lawyer's thing, by the way, and having to run with that
Hmm.
whole case because one thing
And
Becca
she
Scoops did,
herself said that.
yeah, but the thing about that Becca Scoops was able to really get me to see was that I didn't know about this, was the lawyers essentially, when they first took her case, they didn't have a defense for her. They looked at that evidence and are like, girl, this does not look good for you. So what they did was there was a lot of politics surrounding this. And you know what I think? I think she was cast as the perfect little victim with the baby voice and the pictures of her, you know, having a fake being. See, what really ticked me off, and I said this in one of my first videos, and my first one was that I have two brothers that died from muscular dystrophy, and she was claiming that this was the case with her, that she had muscular dystrophy. And as soon as I saw her jumping around in that snow, and knowing that my brothers and what kind of assistance they needed just to get in and out of that chair, and she's just jumping around, getting herself in and out of that chair, it's just like, how did anyone buy this comp for 2 seconds?
The fact that she crossed her legs in the wheelchair.
She's tossing her hands in the air. I'm like, my brothers could barely feed themselves. It looks like they had dumbbells on every single one of their limbs, and they could barely lift themselves. They couldn't make any sudden movements. They were never able to run, even when they were able to get on their feet. And by the age of 10, they were in wheelchairs. So I'm like, here she is as like a teenager going into her 20s, and she's jumping in and out of that wheelchair like it's nothing. I'm just like, you got to be kidding. And plus, muscular dystrophy, there's many forms of it. There's Duchenne, which is what my brothers had. That's the worst case that you could possibly get. It's a death sentence. It's like an 18-year, the lifespan is 18 to 21. There's Becker's. There's all kinds of different types of muscular dystrophy. They never specified which kind she had. And then, again, they think that this only affected her legs. I'm like, no, it's a deterioration. That's what muscular dystrophy means, a slow deterioration of the muscles. Your entire body, by the time my brother Aaron passed away, he couldn't even cough. He couldn't even swallow food. You know what I mean? It's not just something that I guess Gypsy and Dee Dee thought they should have done some more research, because they thought, we'll just make it so your legs don't work, or pretend they don't work, and everything else works perfectly fine. As soon as I saw how well coordinated she was, it's like, I wish I was living in that neighborhood. Especially my mother, she's an absolute pistol. She would have went right up to them and been like, BS, BS, BS. You guys are faking.
Well, that's the New Yorker for you, right?
Oh, yeah.
What I think, one of the takes that you had that I feel like was very, very interesting, and I think a male perspective from this point of view is enlightening, right? Where you spoke about Gypsy's relationship with Ken versus Ryan. Now, I personally have always said, in fact, I don't know how much of my content you've watched, but...
Oh, I love your content. I'm addicted to it.
Back in January...
You are a guilty pleasure of mine. I'm just letting you know that now.
Back in January of 2024, when she was first released, I said, this is her ex-fiance, Ken.
One of the many that we know about. I think there's... I know. I think there's more men. I think there was way more men than just the ones we know about. But, go on.
Oh, I'm sure. I said, don't get the messenger. But I would venture to say that she's either seen Ken or has plans on seeing Ken. And
that's obvious.
That she's going to leave her husband and get with Ken.
I saw this. When
she left him 2.5 months later.
Yeah, not even 90 days being out of jail, because it's like, having someone have the companionship like through letters and through visits behind bars where you're not around anybody else and you're not seeing any other men around you. You know what I mean? It's like, and again, like there's another milestone, if you want to call that, that's going to happen. It's like unchaining a tiger when she gets off parole. We haven't seen what she's going to be like when she gets off parole yet, because now she's got no limitations, no restrictions. And, you know what I mean? I'm going to, now that she has the kid, and she's even, I see parallels to Casey Anthony, and I'm hoping I'm wrong, but even down to the haircuts.
Ooh, you are preaching to the choir. I don't even want to think that. Like, that's the thing.
I know. I'm like, I hope I'm wrong. I said in my last video, I was like, you know what? It's like, my biggest concern in this entire saga is that child. And I'm like, thankfully, as much as I dislike Christy, and as much as I can really go on and criticize Rod and the whole gang that were, just coming out of the woodwork now that there's money attached to Gypsy, I do believe that there are some genuine people around her that do care for that child. And if there is a danger that is getting exhibited, or there's some kind of leverage going on, I I would say I would trust Rod a little bit more than Christy, because I think Christy kind of does Gypsy's bidding because of, you know what I mean, especially with how nasty she was being towards Ryan. And again, like from a male's perspective, like as soon as I heard that jail call from the prison confessions about her when she lied to Ryan about talking to Ken 3 weeks
Oh
ago, the whole
yeah.
3 weeks
Oh, I
ago thing,
knew
I'm like,
immediately then. Yes.
right
Yes. That was
there
a
and then
telltale.
I knew. I'm like Ryan, don't do it, man. Do not marry her. I'm like right there tells you everything you needed to know. And you want to know what? I can't entirely blame Ryan because I've been stupid and like blindly in love with someone in my past, and where it's just like you just kind of want everything to work. You just kind of like you don't want to throw in the towel because like well what if it does work? What if the enormous risk factor is there, but it's like you just don't care. It's like you just want to see all the good in it. You want to have all the faith in the world. If I keep loving on this person, and what sucks is, in my last video, it's about the breakup. And how people are kind of dunking on Ryan about like just get over her already. You gotta understand the sacrifices this man made for her and all the scrutiny
Yeah.
that he faced from his family,
And
his job, his friends, the global media, the global spectacle, and the spectators that are
mhm.
involved with that, and everything that he rearranged to be with this woman just for her to get out and discard him within 90 days, and his biggest fear coming true, which is going back to the man that he feared she would always go back to. And that's exactly what happened. And then not only that, but as soon as she goes back to him, she's knocked up immediately, flaunting it all over social media, and they're getting the matching tattoos, and she's given all the love to Ken that he wanted from Gypsy. So
But
basically,
Ken
he's got
keep treating her the way she treated Ryan, and I think that
right.
is the very interesting part.
It is. That's one of the things I go into. I'm like, I think Gypsy, because you want to know what I, as a male, kind of did this. I used to be a little more toxic when I was in my like early 20s. I've been in rock and roll and metal bands most of my life, so I used to just care about music and getting on stage and meeting girls. I didn't really care about relationships. And getting on stage and meeting girls, I didn't really care about relationships. And you want to know what? That makes women chase you. I had one girl that would chase me all
That
over the
is so
country.
true.
Yeah, if I had to,
Mhm.
so, and it's like that kind of challenges him. I think Gypsy likes the challenge. Ryan made everything so easy for her. As soon as she wanted love, he would turn into submissive silly putty. As soon as she wanted it, it's like I love you, baby. He smothered her with the love, and then now that Ken is just kind of stale. He's kind of just there. He's not really, he seems more scripted and just kind of, I don't know. He's kind of blank. He just doesn't come off as genuine, and
He
then
is,
it's a power struggle for Gypsy because she's used to having control of men, and now she doesn't have control of him. And I think that's what's keeping her. She doesn't love Ken. It's a product of her obsession. She wants the chase.
yes, yes, yes.
So
It's
that's
not
what
a
I
love
see as a
thing.
male.
And in her mind, she was like, if I have this baby by you, you won't be able to go nowhere.
Right, and I know as soon as that happened, which is basically like the day they got back together. As soon as I heard, like literally, I heard about the pregnancy before I even heard they got back together. I'm like, geez, that was fast.
Yes.
So I think that was not some coincidence, and people can sit there and speculate and argue with me all they want. I 100% believe that she baby trapped him, and you know what I mean. It's like now she's got something to hold over his head, and now she's also connected to him for life, whether he likes it or not. So now it's like she's moved the
Yeah,
power play. It's a power play for her.
it is, and that's the thing. And I think there's a lot of parallels to right before she had her mom murdered, to now. Like if you and when she first came out on that Nick Viles episode where she said, I do not identify as an unaliver. I didn't actually do the kill. I had
Yeah.
Nick do it because I couldn't.
See, you know what?
She
I have
said
a
the exact
video.
same thing the other night.
Oh, I know she did, and that's one of the delusions that she's under right now. Because you want to know what? I mentioned this in one of my other videos, but I have actually the next video that I'm going to put up. I'm actually going to put up examples with the mugshots and the case details and everything of the masterminds of crimes that with any weapon, like either hired a hitman or hired a spouse or a lover or someone in a love triangle that ended up unaliving, their spouse or their parents or whatever the case may be. and they always got the maximum. Mark Seaver's case, he had one of his guy that actually wielded the hammer. Horrible way to kill somebody, by the way. He ended up getting a reduced sentence in the Dan Markel case. Several people doing life sentences that you know what I mean, that didn't wield any weapons. They were just like the middlemen, and just they had some like financial gain in it. And so
Yes, and
I
that's
want to
the
make that
part that I
video
feel
where
like
I show, yeah, the video's gonna have endless examples. It's like, hey, Gypsy, you're the first case I've ever seen in my life where the mastermind somehow got this little sweetheart deal, while the person that was groomed into the entire situation through a lie that's been proven, just somehow got thrown away by the system. I think this was system. I think he was systematically railroaded. I think this was they saw a money situation. They saw. I think the DA was under a lot of political pressure with this as well. Oh, well, she's a victim. If you go after a victim, you're not going to get a re-election. You're going to lose your job. So I think he caved into political pressure, public pressure, because they bought the Munchausen by proxy narrative. And so they're like, well, we need a scapegoat. And Nick was that scapegoat. Someone's got to go to jail for this forever. So they, basically railroaded him with, they wouldn't even, again, allow him to bring up the autism aspect at his trial. Why not? It's like that
no.
has to factor in.
So I don't know if you know, but Mommy Dead and Dearest was released 2 days before the trial.
Yeah, I think that's jury tampering, and I think that should that's a
I don't know
compelling grounds for
how.
me.
Right. I don't know how they were able. I understand what
Highly
was going on
irresponsible of
behind
the
the
media to do
scenes.
that.
Well, that's the
Right. I think
thing.
there's a lot of political stuff.
And honestly, the DA and a lot of the people surrounding this case that work within the court system, allegedly, all sit on chairs of boards,
Yes.
like behind the scenes of a lot. It's like such a wild, wild
They're all connected.
story. What did you say, Ivory?
They're all connected.
Right.
Yes.
Everybody that has anything to do with this case, the lawyers, the DA, the judge, all of it, they're all connected. And
It's a
they
big
all
club.
run a lot of organizations in the city. And so they're all rubbing each other's backs, and they all got each other in their pockets. And I think that played a lot into it.
That's what I'm saying. The politics. I think how that doesn't go into conflict of interest and the jury tamper. I mean, there's so many appellate points in there that should be open and shut, but his appeals keep getting shut down and shut down. So it's like this goes all the way up. This is not just at state level. I mean, even when they go to the Supreme Court level, it's going to be. Like I said, one of my biggest goals besides the muscular dystrophy awareness, because Gypsy was mocking my brother's condition for gain, is also to try to get a new hearing. Because again, I think it was a lot of public and political pressure to get Gypsy to where she is. I'm like, maybe we can do the same for Nick in a way. It's like, look at the injustice in this. How come the mastermind gets to go free, but the hired gun that was basically a lovesick kid that was on a level 2 autism spectrum is just thrown away by the system just because they needed a scapegoat? That's exactly what it is. It's like they didn't even give the poor guy a chance. Nothing. He had no priors. He, you know what I mean? Essentially was convinced that he was slaying the dragon to save her from some immediate danger when she wasn't in any danger. And, the FOYA records really demonstrate that. So it's blowing
Oh
my
yeah,
mind how
that's
those FOYA records,
damning.
can go
But
to the higher courts and they're just ignoring it.
but the thing with that is, I was thinking about this last night, that maybe, just maybe, when she gets off parole and she acts the donkey, that will be when we might see more movement with Nick.
It's possible.
And
See,
I
one
say
thing,
that
and
because, for them to see her and like what she's gonna do, because I'm sure there's gonna be something that's gonna happen that's gonna be pretty bad. Whatever it
oh, you
is,
can bet your
that is
bottom
gonna
dollar,
indicate,
absolutely.
right? That's gonna, first of all, that's a huge lawsuit on Missouri's hands, because
Yes.
they handled her case with complete negligence. She should have never seen the light of day ever again.
No,
Um,
no.
and I just feel as though we'll see things that she'll end up getting herself in trouble again. And once she
Yes,
does that, whoever is on the brunt of that has a huge lawsuit, huge,
absolutely.
on the state of Missouri
Because
and Louisiana for on the parole.
right, because it could obviously whatever happens could have been avoided and should have been avoided by the people that let her go free in the first place. You know, it's just like they knew, even in front of the parole boards. I couldn't believe the parole board bought this crap. It's like usually a parole board, they don't let you retry your case. I mean, I've never been in jail, I've never been in a system like that before, but I'm well aware of it. I've been following true crime a long time.
Right.
I worked on a true crime show. The one thing the parole board does not want you to do is sit there and retry your case in front of them, retry the discovery file right in front of them and say, I'm innocent, I didn't do anything wrong. No, they want accountability. They want you to sit there and basically, say like, you know what, I did this crime and I take full responsibility for it. No blaming, no justifying it, none of that. How Gypsy was able to go there and play victim to a parole board and have them buy it is grandstanding. But it's no different than the DA and
Yes.
the public and everything else. It's like this woman just somehow is able to put on that baby voice and just kind of get her way. And it's just like I saw through this from the very minute that her interrogation of when her and Nicholas
Oh,
got
that's
caught.
damning.
The
Anyone that's
very
seen the
first words out of
interrogation.
her mouth, it's like I knew she was full of it. I'm like, how is the entire system and public at large buying this woman's BS just because she sounds like she emulates a child or something? It's just like it's like kids can be evil too, even though she wasn't a kid. But even ones that pretend to be kids, I guess. It's like
Right.
listen, it's like and Nick, here's the thing about Nicholas. I always point this out. His story has never changed once. He never
No, it has
lied one
stayed
time.
very,
They never had to pry anything out of him. It's like, as soon as he went in there, he told the truth,
he
nothing but the
willfully.
truth, gave it to them right directly. It's just like
Hmm.
how they did him so dirty after he told the truth and really went into everything, why he did it, the motivations, and then also the contrast I pointed in one video was you had Gypsy only worried about herself. She's like, oh, am I going to get a ride home? And what's going to happen to me? And I need a lawyer. And oh my God, it's all Nick's fault. And then all he was worried about was Gypsy. Can I see her? Can I hold her? He was crying over her. He didn't even care about himself. It was sad.
No, he
So
was very
it,
concerned
so there was no
with
self
her.
preservation, even on Nick's part. And that just showed me, like, he was bamboozled big time. And it was
So
just
someone just
yeah.
asked me, do I think that Gypsy will go back after her parole? I think she will commit another crime. I originally thought it would probably be something with like financial fraud or like taxes or something like embezzling or something like that. But now,
Oh,
after
I don't want
seeing
to think
like a
the
lot of
worst.
what she's
Believe
done,
that she will absolutely.
I think that that's lightweight.
Yeah, I don't
What'd you
want to think
say?
the worst, but it's like that again. That child comes to mind, and it's just like whether it's a leverage situation. I think once Ken will break it off again at some point. Here's my
He
prediction.
gets off
Again, I can't guarantee
parole
this, but I think that
June 25th. Is it
June
June or
25th.
July?
Yes, June.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, here's the thing. I feel as though we're going to see what she had been saying about Dee Dee. She's going to be projecting, she's been projecting that about
Oh,
herself. What do you
absolutely.
think, Ivory? Where's Ivory? Hello?
There she is.
What do I think about what?
Um, what she is going to do is basically what she's been saying her mom did.
I don't know that she's going to do what Dee Dee did. However, when she's off parole, she absolutely will go back.
I never confirmed she had a micro deletion. Oh, Gypsy, you're on the burner again, sweetie.
I think she herself said she had the micro deletion issue, didn't she?
No, someone said to me that her baby was tested for microdeletion, and there was one more test that needed to be done, and they were waiting on those results. That's
Okay.
alleged, okay,
Okay.
and based. Okay, Ivy, let's talk about what we were talking about the other night.
What's that?
This happened
All right, give me a hint.
with the ear. Oh, oh, go ahead.
About the baby possibly having the microdeletion?
Yeah. What were
About the
like
ears.
the telltale signs that you were saying? Yeah.
So people were concerned about the baby's ears lying very low on her head. If you look at her ears, they lie very low on her head. There's a lot of forehead, like a lot of from her ears up. And so that was one of the concerns I saw a lot of people talking about with the picture.
Right, right. And that was
I read
something
something
that,
about that.
The whole thing with the microdeletion is she said that she already had the baby tested, which we know she didn't. However, she said that already and lied about it. And now here you are
Yeah.
putting a post saying that you got the baby tested for this exact microdeletion and it came back negative. However, you said it before, so which one is the truth? Why would
Again,
you?
anything that comes out of her mouth has to come under complete question, or just assume the opposite. That's what I tell most people. It's just like anything she said, like, when before she even had the baby, when the baby is born, she is not going to be on social media. She is not going to be this and that. She's all over the social media. I guess she's just like, well, I won't put her face there, even though we have seen her face, but still, it's just like anything she says or claims, it's just like expect the opposite.
You have to wonder if that wasn't a PR stunt because of all the heat she got from the show and the episodes that she just ran through. You got to
Yeah, and
wonder if she's
she's
trying to put
not doing
something.
herself any favors. Yeah, and she's continuing not to do herself any favors. But one quick thing I wanted to add about Ken was this is my prediction, as a male, seeing how males behave, because I am one. Especially because, Ken came back at a nice, convenient time. I think he saw all the clout and all the interviews and everything going on between her and Ryan, and he's like, I want a slice of that pie. So once I think he ends up either getting his own little deal with his for a show of his own, or he meets a much more attractive woman, or finds something where he doesn't need Gypsy next to him in order to receive the clout that is needed. Because Ryan's branched off on his own pretty well right now. He's got a nice following for himself without her. I think Ken is going to be going that same direction, and as soon as he starts getting that, he starts getting more attention from other females, and you know what I mean. It doesn't take much to have something better than Gypsy.
who's
You know what I mean?
willing
I
to
think
take one for the team?
right. So I think that's when he's going to start, pulling away from Gypsy again. But this time again, it's going to be a real bloodbath because there's a child involved, and Gypsy is not going to take it well if he tries to getting away a second time. She already got quote traumatized from him breaking up with her once already, and that's her losing control of a situation. I saw frustration, not sadness. Especially when she was, see, what really spelled it out for me was when she was at that therapist and she's just like, I don't want him to just stay for the baby. I want him to want this relationship. She was more concerned about him wanting her than him, staying for the kid. It's like the child was just kind of like a secondary thing for her. Her getting her relationship satisfactions was the, part she was crying over. So that one showed that, it's all about her, not even so much the child. And also that that's not the words and actions of a secure woman in a secure relationship. So obviously she has her fears about Ken leaving again, and I think she can already kind of either sense it or she senses something is off because otherwise she wouldn't be in there crying. She'd be like, everything is great. Everything is, we're well
Not
connected
only
and we're this,
that,
we're that.
they've constantly mentioned multiple times before and after the baby was born. Hold on, my son's fussing.
Been there. Always the wrong time.
As you're not going, Ivory.
Hey, it's going good. Let me ask you a question, since she's not here.
Yeah.
I want to know, having a male, being a male, your
Hmm?
perspective on what made you realize that Gypsy is not telling the truth? What brought everything to light for you?
The muscular dystrophy claims.
That was it?
Yeah, that's what sent me over the edge with her. And then it just got me to go down a bigger rabbit hole. I watched with my ex-girlfriend, I watched The Act like all the way through with Patricia Arquette. And it's like that show was pretty well, and I think, a lot of things were dramatized, but what I didn't like about that show was it jumped all over the timeline. It's just like, started out with the crime scene, then went back to some other, you know what I mean? It just kept jumping all over the timeline. It wasn't told very coherently or cohesively. I think the story should have been, from beginning to end rather than jumping from here to there. And then they changed the names of some characters, like Dan Glidewell was named Steve in this or something like that. And yeah, there was just a lot of things that were depicted in the acts that, and again, I think the main thing about Gypsy not liking the act was she didn't have control over the narrative of that show because, again, it was made while she was incarcerated, and you know what I mean? She didn't have control over the narrative, and it didn't make her look all wonderful and, victim-like in that as much because it showed her, eating all the sweets and seeing her teeth fall out, and, all the non-flattering things were in that. But, yeah, just, yeah, I liked the show otherwise. It was done very well. It was acted very well. Joey King did a very great portrayal of Gypsy, but again, a lot of it was based off of Gypsy's own stories. It was not based off the FOIA documents or any like real evidence factors. It was just, you know what I mean? She was chained to they show her chained to the bedroom or whatever because Gypsy said that.
You say,
you know what I mean? There's no other evidence.
Yeah. It was very one-sided.
Yes,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Very, very. There was no. And that's really ultimately the issue is that there was no actual. I've never seen a story or a documentary from the person's point of view that did the crime. And that is probably the most baffling thing. And I think that that's what has so many people so intrigued with this, besides the fact that Nicholas hasn't gotten justice, nor Dee Dee, but the fact that it's a story told from the criminal, which if you're a criminal, why would I trust
the person who plotted the entire thing?
And admits she's a pathological liar. She admits herself that that Dr. Phil episode. Again, I wanted to smash the TV a couple times listening to that BS. Again, with her downplaying her involvement, and this was all negative. She's like, yeah, I basically groomed him to do this crime, but I didn't like hold a gun against his head and make him do it. It's like, are you serious right now? It's just like, so you're sitting there saying, like, yes, I planned this whole thing. Yes, I'm the one that benefited from this. And yes, I persuaded him and used every sexual and manipulation tactic in the book. But I didn't hold a physical gun to his head. Therefore, it's still his fault, even though. So basically, she got mad at him for doing what she wanted. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I could not believe she was running.
The issue is that not only did she do that, she came out and villainized him. So, I mean, if according to her, he'd be the hero.
See, if she wanted any redeeming factors or any kind of redemption, she should have came out of jail kicking and screaming on behalf of Nick. Like, you know what I mean? I want his release. If I'm getting released to get a second chance, he deserves one. You know what I mean? This was my crime. I plotted this. If she took accountability and advocated for him very hard and, really tried to help him along the way. Because again, it's like he did what she wanted him to do. And he many times said, let's just run away together. Let's go do some, there's got to be a different way out of this. And she would start to do the emotional push and pull thing that, a lot of people in emotionally abusive relationships do. They have you starting to get insecure and you question your place in their life with them. It's just like it's a hot and cold thing, and she knew what cards to play. I think even one of the Ruby videos, it's like, I have one card to hold over you and stuff like that. And she was role playing different personalities with him. It's like everyone's saying that Nick had all these tendencies before he met Gypsy. No, with the FOIA documents, it clearly demonstrates she brought him into that world. He didn't know anything about the BDSM. And plus she had behaviors with previous men, especially Dan Glidewell, the BDSM stuff and all the role playing and all the cosplaying and the wigs and the outfits.
To him.
Yeah. So it was just amazing that a lot of her supporters.
I said Dan even stated in court during his testimony that Gypsy introduced it to him, the whole BDSM thing.
Oh yeah,
So of course she's the one bringing it to them.
yeah, but her supporters don't want to
And
acknowledge
that's
this.
why I don't get it now. Like they're seeing, you would think that the Missouri would say, okay, wait, we're seeing the same behaviors. We might get ourselves in a little bit of trouble if we let this go on too
You would
far.
think so. There's something, again, just like Ivory said, there's something behind the scenes and there's some interconnection going. I hate to, put a tinfoil hat on here and say this is like a conspiracy theory, but I can't come to any other real conclusion other than
No, that has
there's
to be it.
people working. Yeah, there's got to be people working together because the damning amount of evidence and the FOIA documents that. And keep in mind, we haven't seen everything. With every case that you research, the police and the prosecutors know way more than the public ever does.
Nina,
And
you
they
know we looked
purposely.
into this, and
What'd you say?
I really feel like they let Gypsy go
No,
with that
start the
plea deal.
beginning. I didn't hear you.
I said, we went
What'd you
over
say?
this. We've talked about this and we've discussed this. And I feel like the whole letting Gypsy go on the plea deal was all because of the fraud investigation. Had they investigated that fraud with those organizations, every organization that was helping Dan Patterson get his organization off the ground would not have been able, it's all politics, would not have been able
Yes.
to back him monetarily. They all would have been under investigation, even though it wasn't their fault. Investigations hold up money, and they wouldn't have been able to back him and put their money out there for him. And I think he knew that he needed his organization to take off, and so he had to let that slide. If there was ever a fraud investigation, it would have stopped him in his tracks. And so he let her go on a plea deal, also covering that fraud. Hey, here's the deal. You do this, don't bring it up again.
I
Yes,
think
that
that,
was
yeah, that
very
makes a lot of
much.
sense.
That was
On
very.
the board of Dan Patterson's organization. You got the sheriff, you got the police, you got the
DA's
shelters,
office.
the shelters that it's Dan Patterson's organization. I mean, all of them sit on that board. The same people that were all involved in this whole case.
It's like when I first started seeing them doing the investigation, I thought it was in the right direction. With the sheriff coming out saying not everything is as it seems, and they were starting to expose a lot of the fraud stuff. But then it started as soon as they started with the whole, well, it's all the mom's fault, and this. And by the way, the whole Munchausen by proxy thing. How can you can't diagnose somebody with Munchausen by proxy if they're not alive, first of all. And secondly, it's like when it clearly shows that usually the Munchausen by proxy thing is when you make your child sick
The
on
physically
purpose.
harm them to make them sick and then save them. So you can
Hold
come
on
in
one
Right.
and
second.
for saving the person. And
Right.
she
It
never did
doesn't,
that.
and she would be the first case ever documented where the victim of Munchausen would actually unalive the person doing it to them. There's never been a case of that ever.
No. And they usually don't last into adulthood.
No, not at all. They're usually by 5 or 6 years old, or when they're able to start thinking for themselves even a little bit. Like what's that Lacey Spears case comes to mind. I'm not sure if you heard about her. It was an upstate New York case where she was poisoning her kid with salt through a
Yep.
feeding
I
tube.
remember
And
that case.
yeah, oh my God, it was horrific watching that case. But like when I think Munchausen by proxy, and she documented every hospital visit, she was doing charities and fundraisers, and oh my poor boy, this. But then they got her on a hospital camera changing that feeding tube in the bathroom and with a salt-like looking substance, and immediately going into a seizure, and he ended up having brain damage and died. And the first thing she did was text one of her friends to go into her apartment and get rid of all the salt bags and all the bags that were in her apartment. And it
Yep.
was one of the see when I think Munchausen by proxy, I usually think like toddlers, little kids, like that don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? That have
Yep.
no awareness of what's happening to them. With Gypsy, it's like she obviously had self awareness of what was going on when she was, getting Make a Wish, benefits in her 20s when it's supposed to be, or 19 when it's supposed to be for kids. My family got to do Make a Wish and I was 12 years old at the time. But like I said, my family was a little more unique because I had two younger twin brothers. We had two family members with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, not just one. So it's like our case got kind of more prioritized because, they also wanted to give us the trip while they were still able to walk. So we got to go to Disney World for a week while my brothers were still able to walk and get around because they didn't want to, do it later on where they weren't able to, go on the rides or get around or anything. So,
Right.
when I heard that they were taking advantage of that and Habitat for Humanity and everything else. And also, I keep hearing that there were neighbors that knew about her walking around the house and that people were aware that she could walk and all this. How come no one picked up a phone and said,
And
hey,
called anybody.
these people that got this free house and that, we helped build and, this girl that has all these illnesses, it's like, how is she able to get up and walk around all over the place? And plus, like, there was nothing muscular, like, wrong with her legs. Her legs looked like they worked perfectly fine. And there was, like, there was no, like, when someone's legs look malnourished and they haven't been exercised properly, her legs look perfectly fine. And there's
Right.
just so many red flags that just came along where I was just like, if she's claiming to have MD, it's just like again. I wish I had my mother watch it at the time. Like, look at this. Like, this girl's claiming to have MD. Again, they didn't specify what kind. There's several kinds of muscular dystrophy, and they're just like, muscular dystrophy. And also, I keep telling our supporters this about all the quote unnecessary surgeries. First of all, in the FOYAs especially, they were necessary, every single one of them.
Tell
And
you
plus,
from reading her medical
surgeon,
records that every
surgeons. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
that every medical procedure that she had can be explained by her medical history, like her actual medical diseases. Every single
Right.
one. I went through her medical records.
And also, a surgeon and a doctor, they do not operate on someone because a mom tells them to. This is ridiculous. That's just like, oh, well, she would just keep changing doctors until you got to until they see a diagnosis with their own eyes, they're not going to put anyone under the knife unless, there's something that they can diagnose and see and double check and, check there's so many different, procedures that they have to go through and, in the medical system before they get to the part where they're like, yep, we're going to perform a surgery. So a mother's insistence and power of persuasion would not get a doctor, let alone more than one, to have Gypsy go under the knife when she didn't need it. That's absolutely ridiculous.
In order to state that all these medical procedures were done unnecessarily means that every doctor, nurse, assistant, radiology tech, dentist, dental assistant that she's ever come in contact with through her entire life, every medical healthcare system did her wrong. And
Yeah, or they were all in on it together, or they all were
Right.
incompetent at the same time. It's like, I don't
Yeah.
believe that.
I
There's just that's the odds of that are astronomical. It's just like absolutely not. So again, it's like even using common sense. Forget the FOIA documents. Just put common sense in there for a minute. There's no way that you would be able to get a whole bunch of doctors and everyone from every level of the teams and of
Come back in. Where's y'all? I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
That's okay. We're back. Oh, I'm back.
Hold on, let me try and grab Ivory. My thing, where's Ivory? I can't find her.
I don't know where she went.
Ivory, I don't see you. All of a sudden, it was just gone. Where is
I think she'll probably pop back up.
Yeah, she'll pop back up. I'm trying to see if I could find her because I know sometimes with TikTok is weird. Okay. When you pause for a long time, it does that. Oh, y'all, Gio's acting of the fool. He doesn't want to go to sleep.
Gotta love it.
He's like, no. I'm like,
They're tired, but they like to fight it for some reason. It's like, you're tired, that's why you're like this. Go to sleep. No.
Also,
There we go. There she is.
Oh, what was
Ivory, I know you said you had some questions about the medical records.
I had questions about the medical records.
No, not you, Ivory.
I did.
No, Justin.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, or
No,
maybe I misheard you.
no, we were talking about the medical records. Basically, like even in a common sense perspective, I was just basically telling Ivory that it's astronomical. First of all, to believe that first of all, surgeons and like I said before, surgeons and doctors do not operate, especially on a child or anyone, just because a mother that's very persuasive tells them to. You know what I mean? There's many procedures they have to go through. There's many different levels of the medical system they have to go through the diagnosis, many labs and results that they have to go through before they decide, yeah, we have to do a surgery. It's
First of
not
all, anybody
the,
who's ever dealt with medical insurance knows what you have to go through to even get an X-ray or a CAT scan.
oh,
These
yeah,
people are not paying for all these unnecessary medical procedures. They are
no.
just. Also, Gypsy wants to sit there and act like, well, they did it and they never actually asked me if I can walk or if I was in pain because my mother was always there. As a nurse, my entire life being in the healthcare field and only the healthcare field, I can assure you that doctors and nurses definitely spoke to her and not the mother. They asked her if she can walk. They asked her if she was in pain. They asked her the questions and she lied. It wasn't Dee Dee telling the story. It was Gypsy.
The FOIA
Because she asked
actually
her.
revealed that she had 22 months of making her own medical decisions. I think the 22 months before her mother was unalived, she was Gypsy
Oh,
signed
I
on the
see
dotted
that.
line saying that she was making her own medical decisions.
Yeah.
So saying that her mom orchestrated all of this is BS because at the time of her mother's death, she had full, you know what I mean, control over her own medical decisions. So again, that's something that's in the FOIA records that maybe her supporters know about, maybe they don't, or they don't care.
Did you know that, Ivory? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she
Yep,
had to sign because of
22
the.
months.
And then
It's
you know,
almost
remember
two
the whole
years. Yeah, almost
improvisation
2 years
thing?
of her making her own medical decisions, no problem.
Here she was saying that, oh, my mother had power of attorney over me. Remember, she said that her mother had guardianship. She couldn't sign her own papers. It was all for her mother did everything. That's not the truth. She was signing for her
No,
own papers.
she was. She was. And maybe when she was a minor, that might have been a different story. But no, as an adult, she was making her own medical decisions for almost 2 years before her mom was done away with.
Not even that. Everything she had, her teeth being pulled out, the feeding tube. And I'm going to tell you this: she did not have muscular dystrophy. However, I do believe that she needed that wheelchair at times. Why? Because she had a cervical spine lesion.
Yes,
Everyone
she
go
did.
Google what a cervical spine lesion is. It can give you weakness. It can give you temporary paralysis. It can give you problems walking for distances. It can give you numbness. It can give you all kinds of things. And if you did you guys see that video of her at the mall with Ken the other day, walking in the street, and everyone's like, she's like, oh, I had
Yes.
blisters on my foot. No, that was your back. That was your
Yeah.
hip. You couldn't walk straight. Again, the pregnancy and the postpartum period did nothing but exacerbate all of the symptoms she had when she was younger that went away for a while because she was healed from them because of the medical treatments. And what happened? They exacerbated the symptoms, just like I called when she first got pregnant.
Right, but you know what I mean? But in the court of law, they tricked the entire public and the entire system into saying this was medical abuse at the hands of her mother. Absolute crap.
You
You
know
know what I mean?
what's
They had the
funny?
medical records right there that could have proved that she was making her own decisions, and why they did not. Again, it had everything to do with politics, just like you said, Ivory, because they had a slam dunk case. Because you know what? Again, her own lawyers admitted that they didn't have a defense for her. The evidence was so damning against her. They were going to go with, I think, battered
Spousal
spouse.
abuse.
I'm just like, they
Yep,
didn't even
battered
live
spouse.
together. I'm like, don't you have to live together to be a battered spouse? I mean,
They
didn't they just
considered
meet
emotional
only in
abuse and
person like
manipulation.
twice?
Ivory, I can't hear you. You're very low.
Sorry, they considered it emotional abuse and manipulation falls under battered spouse. And that's
Yeah,
what the
the
family is saying, is that he.
correspondences don't prove that at all. Other way around, if anything.
And again, who brought up the medical abuse? Who brought up the Munchausen by proxy? Everybody wants to give Mike Stanfield all this credit. However, I don't believe it was Mike Stanfield that gave that defense. I believe that it was Dan Patterson.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this I think was a big PR thing. This had nothing to do with getting justice for anyone. This had to do with there's money involved and politics involved. So you know what I mean. There was a lot of self gain for key players that were surrounding Gypsy's case, and again, they needed a scapegoat to you know what I mean, go down for the crime, and they cast Nick in that position, and they just, you know, railroaded him because, you know, I think he's got information that it could be very beneficial to himself, and also clear up a lot of the air, you know, surrounding the case. Except for some
He has it
reason,
right up
he's
his.
taking some stuff. He said he's going to take some secrets with him to the grave, which I, you know, it's just sad because it's like I think he still has like this like undying love for her, or maybe even some illusion that she's going to come back or that he's still with her in some way. But I'm hoping he's going to snap out of it one day, realize, oh crap, you know what I mean? Like he's going to
He's
get tired of
saying
it.
that he wants to eventually talk, he's just not ready to. And I
Right.
personally believe you're absolutely right. He has something up his sleeve. And when he's exhausted all means, all abilities to do anything legally, he's going to let that cat out of the bag because
Because
that's going
he
to be
did
his.
say he's like when I'm he's like I'm going to be making a statement when the time is right. He did say that, and
He's got the
so
instant
I
plea,
think he's
and he's
waiting for the
leaving.
appellate process to and you know writ of habeas corpus at all the as soon as he exhausts all the appeals, that's when he's gonna you know go out to the media and the public because the media has been trying to you know get in touch with him. People have written to him and he's basically ignored everything. And that might be at the advice of his lawyers. You know, let's just see this process through because again, they have some of the best appellate evidence I think that could exist. But again, because of the politics surrounding this, I think by default they're just rejecting everything. But I think after that, once you know the legal pleas are going to be done, it's going to be a public plea and a political plea on his behalf. Just like you know, Gypsy got one for her. I think eventually there will be justice for Nick in some capacity. So I'm eager to see what that is when he is ready to talk, because I'm sitting back with popcorn ready to hear it.
I agree. I'm right there with you because I definitely think he's going to pull that ace out if everything else is exhausted.
He's got it, and I think Gypsy knows he has it as well. And
Oh
again,
yeah,
his
big
credibility
time.
is much better because again, he's told the truth since day one. His story's never wavered. He's never lied about a single thing, and that's why I'm like, why are they doing so dirty? Like, you know what I mean? He told the police like he did not give any frustration or made the police jobs hard whatsoever. He just handed everything right over truth and nothing but the truth, and this is what they did to him in the end. I'm just like, this is just horrible.
That's exactly why Gypsy and the family don't want him out, is because they know that he has the ability to talk. They don't want
That's
him
right.
to
Single-handedly ruin
any
this.
credibility. Yes.
Yep, the
And
longer
that's
he
why,
stays silent, the better. That's how they look at it,
otherwise,
and they know that. They
you
don't even bring him up in conversation. Nothing. They're trying to like just do away with the thought of him or existence of him altogether. There's a reason.
and you would think it would be the opposite, considering the fact
You're
that, hey,
really
Rod,
low,
I'm
Ivory.
just saying, sorry. You would think that it would be the complete
Oh, better.
opposite, thinking that, he saved your daughter, didn't he, Rod? Didn't he, Christy? Like, didn't he save her? Isn't he the hero in this entire story? Because if
You
you
would
go
think
by that
so,
narrative, he saved her then. He stopped the abuse from happening. He stopped
right?
it all, right? You would think that he would be a hero in their story, not they
That's
would
why
be
the
able
Dr.
to take
Phil
her
interview
out.
blew my mind. I'm like, wait, Gypsy, you said that your mother, you needed to be saved from this situation. This guy came in and basically gave his entire life and freedom for you, and
And
you're gonna
he's the
sit there and say
villain?
I hate him, and
Thank you,
not
Papa.
yeah, and just basically say, you know, just like, oh, I didn't hold a gun against this, I had to make him do it. It's just like you're mad at him for doing what you asked him to do for 2 straight years. It's like that makes absolutely no sense, and it's ludicrous to sit there and be like, well, yeah, he did everything that I groomed him and begged him to do. But you know what? That's his fault. He should have just tried harder to shut me up or tried harder to not do what I told him to do and groomed him to do and manipulated him to do. Yeah, I manipulated him, but he should have tried harder to fight my manipulation. I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Well, during that same interview, she put the responsibility on him and said, well, he should have called 911 and he should have stopped it. No, you should have stopped it.
No, exactly. It's
The
like, what? He's
higher
not going to
him.
call 911 on the woman he loves and he's trying to save. It's like, well, what kind of crap is this? And he did offer to go to the police and or just run away together. He did give her all these other options, but she just like, again, played the emotional push and pull cards and was like, nope. It's like, if you don't do this, then, we can't be together. If it doesn't go down this way, we're not going to be together. And, she just pounded that into his head enough where he's just like, all right already. And then whatever happened, happened. And it's like, basically, she is on Dr. Phil saying, well, he listened to me, and that's his fault. He shouldn't have listened to me. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow,
The court
wow,
documents
wow.
we learned that about the Dr. Phil interview was that she lied. She admitted in her deposition that she lied on all the interviews.
She
So
just
he was
contradicted herself in the book as well. Remember, she said the
that
last words to her mom were "I love you." Now she changed it to
three
her mom
separate
said
stories.
"Don't hurt me" or something like that. I'm like,
There
she
were three
contradicted
separate
herself in
stories.
her own book.
She just said in another interview that she went into the kitchen. They were painting her nails. She went into the kitchen. She told her mom, "I love you." She cried into a pillow, saying sorry to the pillow. There's three separate stories now about her last
Oh,
interaction with her
didn't even
mother.
know that one.
That
Okay, so now
story
we
she
have
never
three.
changed.
Yeah.
And that was just on the recent, I think it was 60 Minutes Australia.
So
She
she
told that
already
story.
changed it again. So now she
Three
contradicted
times.
the book a second time. Okay, got it.
You, you knew you were killing your mother. You don't forget those last words you said to your mother. That story doesn't change.
Yeah, well,
You
it's
know?
changed. Everything
Three
changes with
times.
Gypsy,
Okay.
and that's why I'm like, she's got no remorse. I think she's a sociopath. I don't think she has any emotion or true feeling because, again, like you said, this was something that would stick with you, and it would just, you'd be hearing those words echo through the rest of your life. But she can't seem to get them right. It's just like, yeah, no, this was just pure evil out of her. This had nothing to do with remorse or feeling bad or I'm sorry or don't hurt. None of that. No, I still think even all three of those stories are bogus. I don't think there were any words exchanged. I think she just made her. It was just like business as usual. Good night, mom. And then she put the knife in Nick's hand, let Nick in, and he did whatever. I don't think there was. She's trying to add something for dramatic effect. You know what I mean? That's what it looks like she's trying to do, in my opinion. Otherwise, I think she was just trying to make everything seemed, normal. Make sure that nothing seemed off. Because if Gypsy was acting funny, then maybe Dee Dee could have, gotten an inkling that something was up. So,
I
in my
believe
opinion,
in
yeah,
her interrogation that her last interaction with her mother is fighting. Now, again, when she got picked up, she had bruises all over her knuckles and they were completely
yes,
swollen. Don't tell me that's from scrubbing the carpet. I'm a mom of
nope.
10, been doing that for years, for decades. I can tell you, I never had the knuckles where I punched somebody swollen and all bruised up.
I'm
Okay, not
still
even
going down
like
that
that.
avenue of whether she had an actual hand in the crime or not. Like I can't say. In my own mind, it's like it wouldn't surprise me to find out that you know what I mean that she actually did have a hand in the crime, and her saying like, "Well, I actually didn't wield the weapon or participate in it." You know what I mean. It wouldn't surprise. I'm hearing a lot of different possibilities that she very well may have had direct
One
hands into the
time,
crime.
I never believed I believe she was in that bathroom. I believe she was in that bathroom because if Dee Dee overpowered Nick and she called the cops, then she looks like the poor little victim hiding in the
Yep,
bathroom with a wheelchair.
that's
However,
true.
when she told her story in the book and Nick told his story and he told what happened that night, when he came out of the room and he knocked on the bathroom door, she didn't answer. He goes into the kitchen because he cut his finger. He's looking for a band aid to take care of his finger. And
Yeah.
he's texting his mother while he's doing this. She says that she heard gurgling. She heard gurgling and she thought
Oof.
she was still alive. And I think she went back in and did the neck. I don't think she did any stabbings. I think she slit the neck.
Because
Trying to.
looking at the crime scene,
I think Gypsy
there's a
did.
lot of rage. There was a lot of rage and emotion in that. It was very personal, but it's like, why would it be
Yes.
personal for Nick? You know what I mean? It's like if there's any personal hatred, it would be Gypsy. So it's like the brutality of the crime is kind of what stuck out to me. Where it's like, what? Maybe Gypsy did have an actual physical hand in it because why would Nick go buck wild and overkill on this woman that he, met one time at a movie theater and was nice to him and was also trying not to, he was trying to find an alternate way to get her out of the situation. He didn't even want to really do this in the first place. It's like now suddenly he's going to become passionate, like right there and be like, yeah, let's go crazy. I hate you. It's just like, no, if anyone had the personal hatred or the vendetta, so to speak, it's
It was
Gypsy.
her.
So yeah, that's what kind of leads me towards, I think maybe she did have a hand in it.
So let me ask you this since I have both of you up here. Why do you think, why did she scrub the carpet?
See
Why
that
do
I
you think
don't
she
know.
scrubbed the carpet? There was blood, his blood was everywhere all over the house. She lived there. Her DNA was bound to be there everywhere and anywhere. What was she scrubbing off that carpet that night? His blood was dripped all over the kitchen.
I
What
don't
was
know.
she scrubbing
Maybe she
off
was
that
just in
carpet?
panic mode. I mean, maybe it was just like,
No,
just
there
didn't
had
know
to
what
be
to
a
do.
motive behind
Panic
that.
mode. I'm not sure. I mean, I know things are very calculated with her. I'll use Gypsy's own words. I know how to plan things. I think that was one of her direct quotes in one of her correspondences with Nick. But, I mean, if I had to just go based off of, especially after witnessing something like that and you have your adrenaline pumping, maybe it was just one of those things where she's just trying to do a botched cleanup job as quick as she can, and then
Mhm.
realized she wasn't going to be able to do it, and then just kind of abandoned
Why
it.
were we
I've seen that
cleaning
kind of
up?
thing happen.
Why were we cleaning up? Because the body wasn't going anywhere. You weren't trying to hide the body, so why were we cleaning up?
See, speaking of the body
Yes.
situation, another thing that stood out was the Facebook messages that she decided to leave while she was at Nick's house, basically trying to put the narrative in there, like some intruder came in there, killed Dee Dee, and then took the daughter, and then that's where that bitch is dead, and then the second one where he raped her and all that other stuff. It's just like for her to say she did that because she wanted the body found is a bunch of, again, hogwash. Because if she wanted the body found, all she had to do was make an anonymous phone call saying, hey, I need a welfare check done on this house, or there's a body at this house. I can't give you any more information. Go on over there. It's like, why
Right.
would you need to go on Facebook and try to manipulate your own fans or friends and audience and family members into like some guy must have came in there, did everything, and then just troll everybody on the computer and make some like weird like pseudo confession and like bragging on Facebook on
She
their
did that
profile. It's like
because her plan got messed up at the end. She never
it
had any
did.
intent of going back with Nick. She wanted to meet up with Dan. Dan admitted during the court testimony that his deposition that she was trying to contact him even after he found out later on that the mother was already dead.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
She wanted Dan. She wanted to be with Dan. Ultimately, that was,
Wow.
like you said before, the thrill of the thrill of the chase. Dan didn't want her, but she wanted him. She was going to
Yeah,
leave with Dan, and she was going to set Nick up to take the fall. However, Dan did not respond. He admitted he did not respond to her messages, and so she had no choice. That's why there was only one bus ticket, and then they had to wait so she can get one because she had no choice but to then go back to Nick's house. But
there
her
we
plan was
go.
always to set Nick up and to leave with Dan because she was infatuated and obsessed with Dan. However, Dan was like, you were LA, we're not going there.
The one bus ticket thing always kind of baffled me, but now I think you just solved that for me. And I didn't know that Dan was still in contact with her at that time. So now I know. Again, I'm glad now that I'm in this community with you guys. I'm finding out stuff that I thought I knew the case pretty well, but wow, now that makes a whole lot more
When
sense.
even when he didn't respond, if you watch the interrogation, the one person's telephone number she said she has was her friend, and that was Dan. She wanted
Oof.
them to call Dan. She thought Dan was at the even in the interrogation room, she thought Dan was coming. But Dan was
So
never coming.
maybe, do you think Dan was part of the motivation for why she got rid of her mom in the
Absolutely.
first
I
place?
think that's the absolute
She wanted to
motivation. I
leave
think
with
she
him.
was obsessed and infatuated with him the whole time.
And Dee
She
Dee didn't like
realized,
him.
and Dee Dee, no, would you want your daughter, even as a teenager, even if she's a young adult, do you want your daughter going just with some random guy? I mean,
I
you got
think
to
he was
remember,
significantly older, wasn't he? Wasn't he like at least like a decade older or something like that?
yep. And they knew each other. Dee
Did
Dee
we
knew him.
confirm that? Because the original Dan that we thought it wasn't. Is that one still
Well,
older?
yes, he's significantly older. And you got
Okay.
to remember, they knew each other from the Vision Con. Dee Dee knew Dan. Dave Blanchard knew Dan. They went to Vision Con together. They were all friends in the same group. And you also have to remember that she was a whore then. She went missing during the Vision Con, and Dee Dee and all of the friends panicked looking for her, and she was found in the room with 5 men preparing for sexual acts.
Wow. Didn't know that.
So that's how Dan knew her. Dan met her through the Vision Con. That's how they all knew each
I knew
other.
they met through the Vision Con, but I didn't know they were still in touch while the unaliving was going on. So really, she had no
He
genuine
didn't have
relationship
contact
with
with
Nick.
her. He
Nick was
wasn't
just a
contacting
pawn.
her. Right. She just used
Ivory.
Nick.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. We could hear you. Okay.
Just like I think she used Ryan to get out on parole to make herself look good on paper. So
I
what I
agree
mean?
with
She uses
that.
people where she needs them, and then when she discards them when they're no longer needed. And she's still demonstrating that even now, especially with what she did to Ryan. And she's still screwing with his head too. She's still sending him text messages and still reeling him this little false hope. And I feel horrible for Ryan because
Well,
it's like
she's still committing criminal acts by proxy because she still has her people over there going after people, threatening them, all
yeah,
because they're anti-gypsy and don't believe her narrative that these people are getting stalked, they're getting, harassed, they're getting bullied, they're getting and she admitted that she has these people posting for her. So she is still committing criminal acts by proxy.
yeah, she's not supposed to be doing that. As on parole, you're not supposed to be. I think there's a certain amount of people you're not supposed to be in contact with, or there's like a contact issue, or or there's a restriction on something like that while
Even
you're on
that,
parole.
Bree has admitted to on a live.
They
I've heard
admitted.
about this Bree. I heard that I haven't had her rap yet, but people are telling me to prepare for her. I'm just like,
Oh, be
like
prepared.
nobody scares me, but
Oh,
bring
Let's
it
good
hope
on,
you
I
look
guess.
good
girl.
AI. I think Justyn will look good AI. I'm just saying.
Well, looking forward to meeting this
Again,
Bree. There's some like shade balls that randomly, because a lot of people, like, if someone seems shady or the profile seems new, block it. You know what I mean? Because like otherwise people are gonna start mass reporting kind of thing. But again, it's like I'm not really breaking any rules. I'm not calling anybody names. I'm not putting out any like memes that I've seen some really nasty stuff that people are saying and posting about Gypsy. Mostly I'm just giving a perspective. It's like I'm not even like going hardball on things. And I can have my own opinion. If I think she's manipulative, I'm saying she's manipulative. I'm allowed. It's free speech. I'm allowed to say stuff like this. If she's going to be a public figure, if you want to call her that, people are going to talk about her. If she wants to be in the spotlight, this is something she's going to have to do. And otherwise, just do what Casey Anthony did for over a decade and just go disappear into oblivion somewhere.
oh, she threw herself into the spotlight hardcore. All of them did. You set them up with reality TV shows. You're
Sure.
in the you know what I mean, the media every other day, throwing yourself out there, acting a fool on social media. I mean, let's be real.
Gypsy, I guess, has TMZ and a lot of the tabloids on speed dial or
On
something.
speed,
That's what Becca
yes.
He's
Scoop said.
trolling her at this
But then
point.
when people don't agree with the narrative, it's, oh, I'm going to be public now. You don't have the right to talk. No, can't have both. You're either
No, you
public
can't have it
or
both ways. Either, yeah,
you're
it's like whatever
private.
you put out there, they can write however they want. They're not. It doesn't say like, well, whatever I contact you with, you have to write it as I want the narrative. And even if she gets the narrative she wants, it's like everyone already knows it's a bunch of BS anyway. It's just like, listen, it's just like and then you want to know it. It's going to be a journalist integrity thing on them. It's just like, why are you glorifying this person? This person is
Absolutely.
only known because she had her mom unalived and viciously and manipulated, developmentally slow guided to do it for her. It's just like how can you get out of that narrative? There is no way out of it. If anything,
There's no.
stay out of the spotlight if you don't want to deal with it. But it's like
That's
there's no way she can
exactly.
change the facts in this case.
You're getting exactly what you deserve, thinking you're a whole murderer coming out here and trying to make yourself famous. Well, now you're infamous and everybody knows who you are, but not for
Right.
your narrative. I'm just saying.
And she's doing herself no favors, doing everything that she's doing, from the immature dancing to the, everything just looks. Everything that she's doing just looks like something like a teenager's doing. I think she's trying to emulate her sister Mia a little bit. Mia, in my opinion, is a much more attractive woman, and she's younger and more youthful. And even I got to hand it to Mia. She even called out Christy, her own mom, about telling Gypsy about the whole Ken thing. It's just like, Mom, you didn't have to go and tell her all this. And, and Christy kind of like, had her eyes wandering kind of thing. I'm surprised they included that on the show because Christy really did. Like, basically, I thought the marriage was going to come to an end either way, whether Christy would have told her about the Ken thing or not. But to basically sit there and be like, Ken's single and he reached out and he's available and he regrets breaking up with you. It's just like doing that is basically just saying it right out in the open. I want to destroy your marriage.
Well, that
I
is the
mean,
epitome of who Christy is. That's what her mother did to her and Rod. Her
right. So
Christy's
it's just like
mother
home wrecker,
involved
like,
herself
straight
in
home
Rod and
wrecking.
Dee Dee. Yep, and that's what they do. That's what these people do. They insert themselves, and they, you know what I mean. It was just a big game.
But
Who's
why
who's
though? Like,
stepmom?
why? What does Christy want with Rod? I mean, it's like not with Rod, but
Couldn't control
with Ken,
Well,
with Ken.
she couldn't
because
control the purse
Ryan.
strings
Because I was
with
gonna say
Rod.
Ryan had his own house. He's got a good job. He's got stability. He loved her. It's like if you were a mom that really wanted what's something that's best for your daughter or stepdaughter, I figured Ryan's situation would have been the more favorable one because Ken seems to be a little bit of a hot mess. He doesn't have a really good job. He
Well, that's
seems to be kind of
exactly what it
scattered.
is for them. That's exactly what it. Ryan could stand on his own. He didn't need them. He didn't lean on them. This is our
Right.
family now. This is who we
Okay.
are.
So just
That's
another
what the
person that
masterminds are.
could be under their grasp,
Exactly.
essentially.
Yep, the
Gotcha.
control. It's
And
the
now that the baby's involved, it's like now you're in our family, genetically, and you're not going anywhere. I mean, in a way, it's like you're not going anywhere. And if you do, you're gonna have hell to pay because he's gonna have to fight for that child, and there's gonna be leverage. I guarantee that's going to happen. It's gonna happen at some point. Ken's not gonna marry her. No way.
That
absolutely not.
baby's name should have been pawn because that's all it is in their game
Yeah.
is a pawn.
And again, when the thing that stands out to me the most is Gypsy crying at that office with the couples counseling, where she's just like, I just want him to want this relationship. That to me says that she's not secure in it, and she knows deep down inside that Ken is nowhere near as invested as she is. You know what I mean? Otherwise, she'd be like, "Oh, things are great. You know, we're equals. We love each other, and things are great." No, she's sitting there crying over the fact that she's like, "I want him to want this," which suggests to me she's under the impression he doesn't really want it that much. Because it's like, otherwise, why would you sit there and cry that this is something you want if unless it was not happening? So
Well,
it's like that to me spoke volumes.
let me ask you this: you're a man. I mean, would you marry her? Think about it. All right, you get
No.
with you take her away from her husband, right? You're cheating behind a man's back. You get her knocked up, knowing that she cheated on her own husband. Would you want to sit there and invest and commit and marry her, knowing she
Well, it's
cheated
the
on the
whole
first
murder.
husband?
Well, first of all, it's the whole murder thing that would turn me
Okay.
off. Just saying, you know what I mean? First of all, it's the whole unaliving, having second degree murder on your record that would probably turn me off right away, personally. Um, but yeah, besides that, all the dynamics between the cheating and the lying and the snaking and all that. Yeah, I would not be able to do something like that because
I
again, it's like it's you know what I mean. But I am guilty of being one of those guys that likes that fell for the damsel in distress kind of situation, where it's just like somebody's just like, oh, men in the past have just treated me horribly. You know what I mean? I just want to be loved correctly, and and then
They
you just want
sure
to come and
don't.
scoop them up on. Yep, you just want to scoop them up on the white horse and ride off into the sunset. Tell them everything's going to be okay. But then you know what? Then they take you to a dark place, and what I mean, you're not going to lift them up at all. They're going to end up dragging you down. And it's happened every
see.
single time I went into one of those damsel in distress situations. It's like, it's got to be two healthy people that have self confidence and have self love and have a good relationship with themselves that should be getting together rather than a broken person that you think you can fix.
See, I agree with the whole damsel in distress and men always want to come in on their white horse. I completely agree with that, and I do think that plays a really big part in this. But let me ask you this: Gypsy didn't look back then like she looks now. Back then, she looked like a young prepubescent kid.
Yeah,
And
she
isn't
did.
that a little bit concerning? Like, because that's who they fell in love with. That's who in their mind they were writing was this
Yeah,
woman who actually looked like a prepubescent girl.
she
She
did.
doesn't
And
know that you're
that
getting
is a bit
hormones.
concerning. Because in one of my videos, I was addressing the baby voice thing, and I was like, okay, I was like, if for the men that like the baby voice thing, including Ryan, it's just like, I'm not accusing him of anything, or anything, but it's just like, if I hear that men are attracted to that sort of baby voice thing, it's for reasons I probably don't want to know. And I don't know what kind of kink it might be, a kink or just I mean I don't know why they would find that kind of thing attractive. Even with her, knowing her that she's in her like mid to late 30s, to me she still kind of reminds me of a child.
Yeah.
And even with the behaviors, it's like, yeah, this woman's not that far out of my age range. I'm 41 and she's like what, 32, 33, somewhere in that range. And it's just like, still I look at her and I see a child. And it's like it almost seems wrong. Like, even when I'm trying to like assess her from a non-biased point of view to see if she's like an attractive person, I still feel like I'm looking at a child and I feel gross. And it's just like, ugh, just because that's what she was trying to portray for so long that she even has me convinced she's a child in a way. So it's just like that's one of the creepiest things, in my opinion, that I've seen. And yeah, if people can look at those documentaries and see someone that basically depicts a 9-year-old and be like, oh yeah, that's cute, yeah, that's a problem. Just to put it straightforward.
Yeah,
Like
even when she
you,
showed up to court, I mean, she wasn't pretty. She looked
no.
like a little kid, and I just feel like that's exactly who they were writing to in prison.
Plus,
And
the act that she was putting on court, the whole shaky voice, like, I live on the street. The whole shaking of the voice. It's like she was trying to, like, put on an act right in front of the judge right there, basically, like, look at me, look at little pipsqueak voice, little old me. I couldn't do what that paper says. You know what I mean? I didn't do it. It's
Last
like, again,
nipples,
I
right?
think she was trying to put on an act right in front of the judge, thinking, like, oh, well, listen to that little cute little voice. It's okay. You can go out the door. It's like, no, that's not the way it works. But again, she was new into this whole thing. She probably didn't think for 1 minute she'd ever be like she even said so. She's like, I knew I'd be in trouble, but I didn't know I was going to be in deep trouble. You know what I mean? And you hear in the interrogation, she's like, "So how am I getting back home? And can I take my stuff with me?" And they're just like, "Lady, you're not going anywhere."
Right.
He thought
That
she was
was
going
the
home,
craziest part.
crawling on the floor, sticking her ear under the door like a slithering snake. Thought
Sir,
she was
I need a
going.
lawyer. Sir, I need a lawyer. Suddenly, all that started coming. As soon as her tactics ended, she went into panic mode, saying, "Sir, I need a lawyer." You know, then she was screaming for her due process and her rights. "I'm not talking anymore." Like, you know what I mean? As soon as she knew she couldn't con and baby voice her way out of it, that's when, she started with panic mode. And then when that didn't work on the police, she went into the judge and shook her voice up and went in there looking all weak and pipsqueaked and everything else. And, she was just using it on whoever it would work on. And in the end, sadly enough, it ended up working to her benefit big time. Not only did she get a slap on the wrist for this whole thing being the mastermind, but she also got a reality TV show, lots of clout on every social media platform of people praising this. I'm like, oh, only in America can something like this happen. But you
That
know
is.
what? I went to
Yeah.
the 60 Minutes YouTube episode and I looked through the comments, and it kind of restores my faith in humanity a little bit because then I see the comments just dragging the whole situation. Like, let's stop glorifying murderers. Why are you giving her attention? Why is this person, being considered a celebrity? She killed her mom. It's just like no matter what she does or what narrative she gives to TMZ or any of those tabloids, it's like she's never getting away from that. You know what I mean? The only way she can do it is by getting off social media and disappearing into oblivion, into some kind of privacy. But she's not the type to do that. She likes the attention, and I think it was
Needs
putting
the
fire
attention.
and gasoline together, giving her own show and all this clout, and meeting Kim Kardashian, and she probably thinks like she is like the crystal meth version of the Kardashians, basically.
The
It's
Dr.
like,
Boo version.
but
Not the
yeah, just
crystal meth version. I wasn't ready for that.
yeah, yeah, the trailer park version, basically.
I just
Mm,
don't understand why these media outlets keep pushing her narrative and her story, because you're right, when you look at the comments, people are going off on it. They're so angry, threatening to not watch their shows or their
Oh
networks
yeah.
anymore. Why do they keep pushing this narrative, I wonder?
I don't know. See, again, it's like
I think
I
it's
don't know. Like
temporary. I
I,
think it's
I think it's
temporary.
temporary too. And you want to know what? If she screws up again and ends up in the system again, I think finally mainstream media is gonna be like, all right, yeah, we can't do this anymore. It's just
Well, I
like
think they're
Gypsy
going to
Rose is
record.
condemned.
I think there's some sort of pact with Lifetime that
I think so.
they
I think
know
so
she's
too.
going to fall and they want to be there to record the crash out. And that's when the media will get the true story, is when it actually comes to surface and she does something crazy, when Lifetime actually records it. They want to film this crash out.
That's the
Yeah,
only
I
reason.
think I think they're they see the two trains coming from opposite directions. They're just waiting for the train wreck to happen. I think there's a big
Hmm.
part of it that's with that because again, sensationalism, whether it's in a good way or a bad way, it's like it's still ratings at the end of the day. And you know what? Whether Gypsy becomes Miss America or whether she becomes the biggest embarrassment on the planet, it's still gonna get the ratings they want. And I think a lot of it has to do with PR and publicity, and I think they're still running with the narratives just because it keeps up with the show. Because keep in mind the show's still going on right now, and as the show goes on, they kind of have to align some of their narratives with what Lifetime has going on. Like what you said about Lifetime, there might be some kind of pact with them or agreement with them where they're just going to align with the narratives that they're putting out. So I think a lot of it, like you said, is temporary. Once the show is over, and hopefully it will be soon, what I mean? I'm hoping they don't just keep going season after season after season, kind of like the Thousand Pound Sisters and some of the other TLC shows that should have stopped long ago, like after the first season. I'm hoping it's not just going to be some continuation of this, like, going crazy. But again, if people are willing to watch, they're going to keep making them. So, you know what I
They
mean?
It hasn't been like that, which is why. Well, first of all, her ratings have dropped tremendously from last season, and they were not all that great last season to begin with. Thank you for the gifts, y'all. I really appreciate it.
They just pushed
Um,
it after Pimple Popper.
that's the thing. They took her out of primetime TV for them to say, you know what? You not hitting
More
those numbers. We're gonna
people,
take you off of prime time.
I
more
like Dr.
people
Lee too.
watch
I like the
someone
pimple. It's kind of gross to
popping
watch, but I
pimples.
love Dr. Lee.
Ivory, you're sort of a little bit low sometimes.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what's going on with my phone.
I'd
Better?
rather watch pimples
Yes.
pop than watch Gypsy Rose. That's for sure.
Well, obviously, a lot of people do. That's why they pushed her.
You're low again. Like muffled.
I'm gonna come back out and pop and jump back in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a ratings thing at the end of the day. You know what I mean? If the ratings are tanking and, her clout is decreasing, you know what I mean? And you know what? I think she's going to throw
Yeah.
a fit once that happens too. Once her 15 minutes or half hour at
Well,
this
how is
point
she
is
gonna
over.
survive financially if you really
Right,
think about
because
it?
someone asked her the other day, what are you going to do for a job? And she's like, oh, I'm just going to be a social media influencer. I'm like, yeah, that's not really a job. You just kind of sit on your butt and do stupid little dances. And I mean,
Yeah,
I've seen
which
her
she
post some
does
really
not.
stupid stuff that got like hundreds of thousands of views. Like, she could film herself putting on socks and hundreds of thousands of people will watch it and comment on it. I'm like, yeah, that's not much of a job, Gypsy. That's
You
just,
said
you
I
know what I
believe
mean?
the show is 1.8. Are you saying that's the rating out of what, 5? No,
Yeah,
she's
I'd have
not
to.
interesting for sure. She doesn't have a personality.
Oh, she sure does. It's just not a good one. It's just something
People
again. But
want watch reality TV because they want to relate to people. They want to say that these people are just like them, and you can't relate to Gypsy Rose. That's the
or you
problem.
want to watch a train wreck, or you want to watch a train wreck, and you can't look away from it. There's that factor too, and that's the sensationalism part of it. I mean, you have that show Deadly Women, where that show is dedicated to women that commit homicide, and that show's got huge ratings. You know what I mean? And they're very tragic story. Again, it's like unfortunately human tragedy gets high ratings. It's sad but true. But at the same time, you're right. There's also shows where there's good narratives and redemption stories and
Yes.
things that are good. But with
Very
Gypsy, I think
few,
it's mostly
but
the train wreck
some.
aspect.
Very few. Very few. Oh my gosh, there's another fly. Hold on.
Not nearly
Yeah,
the size.
I need to find something to cover up this screen because I have to get it.
Okay. Well, Nina's going after a fly. Well, I honestly think that the fact that she's going to be off parole in June, is the only reason that Lifetime is picking up a third season. And I
I think
believe what
so
you
too.
said. It's so they
Because
can
they
get.
wouldn't want to miss something, once they unchain the tiger, so to speak. They're not going to want to, miss whatever happens. And something's going to happen. We don't know to what extent. We don't know exactly what. But again, I think I described her in one of my videos as predictably unpredictable. So
Yeah,
it's like we
yeah.
know something's going to happen. We just don't know what. So
And they
I think
invested this month.
Lifetime wants to see exactly what that is. They want to see her behaviors once she has no restrictions, because last thing she wants to do is go back to prison, and she's still under that microscope right now. Once that's gone and she's got no restrictions, again, they're going to unchain that tiger, and we're going to see what happens then, and that's going to be interesting.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. I can't wait because I honestly, she's gonna do something crazy. I know she is. There's no
Yeah,
doubt in my mind.
I think it's going to have something to do with Ken leaving again. That's just my prediction. I think Ken leaving again, and putting the child up in as a prop and a piece of leverage is going to be the center of this, and that's what's going to be really sad. Is my concern is for that child more than anything else, and I'm hoping there's someone in that family that's got enough sanity to intervene before things get too crazy. You know what I mean? So, and again, as much as I can criticize Ken all day long, he's obviously the better of the two parents, just from, the background alone. Even if he's a little selfish and he's doing this for self gain or whatever, which, it gives Gypsy a taste of her own medicine. But I think he would take good care of that child. I think he probably has a good family that would help him do so. So I think if there was a custody battle, he's got a pretty good case, even though, we see courts usually don't like to remove children from the mothers, but this is a very
Not
unique
all mothers are
situation.
murderers. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got murder on her record, so it's going to be kind of hard to stick with the status quo and having that on her record because he's got that ace up the sleeve anytime he wants to go into a custody match with her.
You okay, Nina?
Yeah, I think I caught the fly. I'm just trying to wait to see a little
That's
bit.
so funny. I agree that watching them on their lives, I feel like Ken is the one that does a lot of the caretaking for that baby. You can see the bond that he has with the baby and that he really cares about her, and she
Yeah.
just can't be. So I really do believe that Ken loves that
And you,
baby.
and when Gypsy was holding the baby, and when the baby was crying, it's just like she. What did she do? She had to make sure the camera was set up at just the perfect angle so it can show her holding the baby and sitting in the chair and all this stuff. I'm just like, the baby, unfortunately, is like it's just a plot device. You know what I mean? I've said that from the beginning. I'm like, this baby is to try to get her like the clout and the attention. Oh, look at her, she's being such a great mom. I think like
Playing
if
victim again to colic. It's just
Yep.
wild. She's always a victim.
Yeah, the whole college situation. I'm just like, really? You needed to get your camera and everything just right to, show, again, this is after she was so adamant saying, when the baby is born, we are not going to be showing the baby on social media. Now she's showing stuff all the way to the college. It's just like, it's like figures. It's a very Gypsy Rose stuntable.
But you
I
also got
think
to
this is the
remember
same
that
fly
whole.
from yesterday.
That's so funny. That whole ordeal with the colic and setting up that camera, catching that baby cry, was also a manipulation tactic towards Ken, who was away and not
Yep.
there. And that was, I think, her way of
Yes.
manipulating him.
I
Like,
forgot
look
about
at
that
you.
because he was away somewhere and he wasn't getting home fast enough, so she was, pulling her little, tricks and, antics to get him to get back there in time. Again, it's like there's a big power struggle between the two because I guarantee she didn't want him leaving at all. But then when he's like, "No, I'm leaving," she tried probably a whole bunch of stuff in order to get him back there until something finally worked. But again, like one of the things I
She's been
said
there, yeah.
before was, yeah, the power struggle is something very interesting to watch because Gypsy does not have control over this man for once, it's like she did other men, like she did with
Right.
Ryan and Nicholas. It's like for once, you know what I mean? There's somebody that's detached from her, and again, I don't see sadness, I see frustration.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he resents her. I think he can't stand her. You can just see it.
No,
I just don't understand why you would put yourself in that position for some clout. I mean,
yeah, it's
maybe,
for
I
the
guess
clout.
so.
Yeah, it's for the clout, and you want to know? I do want to genuinely believe that at this point, it's also for the daughter. I think he does love his child, and a lot of it has to do with that. I want to believe that. You know what I mean? I don't want to sit there and believe that both of these parents are just horrible people that should have nothing to do with children, and them procreating was one of the biggest mistakes that could have ever happened. But you know what I mean? I want to believe that Ken, at least, despite his feelings for
I
Gypsy
I
and his
I
motivations.
don't see it. I don't. I would want to. And the reason why I say I don't is to even see like the stuff that he himself does online. Ken is a troll
Yeah.
too.
When I've seen their interaction on lives, though, I feel like it's always Ken taking the baby. I'll feed her. Ken is the one that doesn't really want her out on social media. I think Ken is just embarrassed by her, sick of her antics, sick of
Yes.
her, all of this. And I think that he is the one truly trying to protect that baby. I think he's the reason why she doesn't post that baby as much. And
That's
notice that when
that's what I'm
she's not
seeing as
there,
well. I
the
think there's a
baby's
part of
screaming
it
on the
that's good.
video.
And you want to know what else I saw? Like, and there's one part of the show where I love how Gypsy claims, like, I don't care about the haters. They can say whatever they want. But then, right on the show, it shows her scrolling and scrolling and scrolling through hater comments. And then Ken is basically telling her right there, like, stop scrolling, stop reading the comments. And she's like, oh, all right. So it's funny she says she doesn't care for the haters, but I guarantee her and Christy most likely are taking like a full-time job's worth of hours each week going through all the haters and reporting this and reporting that person. They probably have like all my information by now. They probably have my IP address, and they probably I mean, who knows? Like, you know what I mean? When someone wants to, again, it's just like if you're gonna be in the public spotlight, people are going to criticize you, and it's whether you like it or not. You can't just dox them, go after them, and again, they're just going to continue to prove that they're just vicious people. And that they are exactly who everybody says they are. They're not trying to redeem themselves at all. They're just trying to silence people that are talking about them. It's just like that doesn't help their case. It's like it doesn't. Again, there's nothing they can do, even if they silence the whole world, to change the facts of the case. Everything's already out there.
Yep.
And The people that fell for it have fallen for it, and other than that, it's just like, for the most part, I think the supporters are a very small minority. Because, like I said, anytime I go to the videos of mainstream media doing anything with Gypsy, it's just like the comment sections are just dragging her and dragging the network, and like, why are you giving this woman clout? We do not glorify murderers. Stop that. So it kind of restores my faith in humanity a little bit, and I'm thinking that's majority of the people that see Gypsy Rose. That's the lens they see, that she is exactly who we think she is.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot more people now are seeing her for who she really is. I think a lot more people are opening their eyes to everything, and I'm loving it. I'm so
Yeah,
happy for
and
that.
especially since Becca Scoops came out, I'm telling you, like she has made an impact on a lot of people. She's changed a lot of minds. I've read a lot of people that were supporters, and then when they saw some of that irrefutable evidence, it's just like, okay, I can't support this person anymore because how are you gonna deny what's right in front of your face? I mean, some people can sit there and
Absolutely.
deny, look at Gypsy as an underdog and just being like, oh, who cares about that? She deserves a second chance, and this, and that. And it's just like, yeah, okay. I wish
I
Nick could say the
recommend
same.
Yeah, I recommend Becca's groups to everybody. I pull people up. I get a lot of people on my panel who are for Gypsy. And so I sit there and I let them up there and I like to discuss, like, well, tell me why. And I like to
Mhm.
debate with them. And so I've sent so many people to Becca Scoops. I'm like, do me a favor, go watch Becca Scoops and come back tomorrow and tell me what you think. I have turned so many people just from sending them to Becca Scoops. And
Yep.
it's amazing.
Yeah, she's her research and what I mean, plus her background in forensics and investigation, and plus her partner, being in law enforcement and all that. It's and plus they have a psychology background. It's not like they're just like this like some opinion. Like they have the proper education to speak on these topics, and you know what I mean. They came with the receipts, not just the narrative or the opinions. So that's why what I mean. I think like again, a lot of people can really get their minds changed if they watch some of the Becca Scoops videos. Again, when I found her, I binge watched her entire channel. I even saw the one other case she covered that was in Wisconsin because I used to live there. The Jesse Kerchevsky thing, the eye drop lady or whatever. She unalived her mother's friend with eye drops or whatever
Oh, wow.
because she embezzled a whole bunch of money from her. She did great on just that video. I think it's like her second video, but the Gypsy Rose stuff is what got her the most most interest from the public. So she's been sticking with that, and yeah, I every time she uploads a video, I click right on it. I'm like, oh, here we go. Even just some of the stuff of her just walking her dog and just talking about stuff. It's like, I love Australian shepherds, and I'll watch her walk her dog and her talk about stuff.
Yep, I do the same thing. I think she just organizes. It takes a lot of what you know, and she just organizes it so well, makes it so easy to follow and understand.
Oh,
Because a lot of the
absolutely.
people know the information, it's just putting it in order. You know what I
And
mean?
yeah, and in a way that makes sense to them that they can understand.
Yeah,
Again, when I heard that one intro and that one video where Rod says, even Becca Scoops, the stuff she says has merit. I'm like, if she can make a believer out of Rod himself, that's something. That's quite the impact. If you can get the own father of the person that she's basically exposing to say that the person has merit, that's pretty amazing stuff.
yeah. Someone in the comments just said that it's factual, not emotional, and I agree. She does a really good job of keeping opinions and, you know what I mean, her emotions out of it and just gives as many straight facts as she can.
And she
And
distinguishes what is speculation and what's actual facts, like facts. You know what I mean?
she
There's some
does.
parts of where she does speculate, and again, I try to do things like the same way through just a common sense perspective, where it's just like, yeah, I can't, tangibly prove this, but if you use common sense and you base things on like, from the recent history and the totality of everything else that surrounds it, you can come to a pretty reasonable conclusion. So, you know what I mean? I like how even when she's being speculative, you know what I mean? She does it in a way where it's just like, wow, she's got a lot of, like, as Rod said, merit for what she's speculating on.
Yeah. So Gemma in the comments just said she's never watched Becca Scoops. So Gemma, if I can suggest going over to YouTube and watching her videos, when I tell you the clarity you will have after watching her, do me a favor, come back. I'd love to know. Hop on my panel when you see me because I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it. I love asking people that because they're just amazed after they watch it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I haven't found one person. I mean, I've had a couple weird commenters on my page say like, "Oh, she just lies about." I'm like, "Can you give me?"
Oh,
I'll
that's
even be open
these
to. I'm like,
people.
"Can you give me an example
That's
of a lie?"
Bree.
And then they
That's
disappear. She's
Bree.
like, "Yeah, of course not."
Yeah,
That's
that's Brie.
Bree.
There's like 5 of them.
Oh, yeah, I haven't met unless Bree has a whole bunch of stock accounts or something like that. It's just like
So
this was just some. Yeah, probably, and that's okay. I mean, again, it's like if someone can really challenge, I have no problem with someone challenging my belief or my belief systems or any of that. It's just like like, but don't just sit there, call me a bunch of names or just say someone's lying and then just and then not have anything to back it up with. It's like, okay, give me your case. I would be curious to hear because I've changed my mind about things before. I'm not going to probably change my mind about any of this stuff, based on everything that I've learned. I even learned stuff from you guys today that I didn't even know. You know what I mean? And it just kind of validates the things that I already know even more. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just all together. I don't think I'm going to have my mind changed about Gypsy Rose anytime soon, but I'm willing to hear someone else's case. I don't need an echo chamber. If you want to come in with an opposing opinion and it's valid and it's going to be civil, then bring it on. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I agree. I love doing that because, you know, I find myself often being able to get them to a point where they have nothing left to say. They can't come back. And you know what I mean? You can feel
They hit
yourself
a
changing.
wall. Yeah, once
Yeah.
they hit a wall, I think that's where I think I don't want to say. I mean, I guess you could say like you basically won the argument at that point because if you can keep going and they have nothing left and they've run out of steam, it's just like then you know what I mean. It's like at that point, it's up to them if they want to continue down running into the wall or seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. A lot of people have caved, I'll say. And,
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I guess you're right. You know what I mean?
But again, I think a lot of the supporters for this is just again like based off the psychological aspect that support Gypsy have like a big internal struggle themselves going on, and Gypsy sort of represents their own internal struggles, sort of like an underdog, or they see similar traits to themselves, and they sort of like project themselves onto her, or they sort of like live vicariously through her in some way,
They
or they just want to believe her, even though
they want to
just in
believe it
this
because most
right,
of
they just
them
want
are
something,
abuse
right?
victims. And they want to
Yeah,
relate to this abuse story to
right.
justify whatever happened to themselves. And I find that a lot.
Exactly. She should not be. I think it's disgusting that they're making her a role model because she mocks the people that have gone through abuse. You know what I mean? I think they could find an actually like abused person like Elizabeth Smart or somebody else that's actually gone through abuse where you can identify with them rather than someone that just grifted off the whole abuse narrative. So and again, the abuse thing didn't even come in until the lawyers got
Nope.
involved because in the police interrogation, did you hear Gypsy one time say her mom was abusive? She said she was a little controlling at
not
times and
one
wasn't, yeah,
single
not
time.
an
Well,
ounce of
if you
one
watch
hint at
her,
abuse.
if you watch her testifying at Nick's trial and they ask her, well, tell me what made you decide to kill your mother, her response was to get out of the hold she had on me, not because I was being abused, not because of all the surgeries and all the abuse I went through. It was
Right.
because she had a hold on me, and that was the men.
Right, and you know what? I don't know Dee Dee's side of the story, unfortunately, because she's not here to say it. But I think there's a possibility that the men that she was trying to get with or whatever were either it could have been one of two things, where Dee Dee did not want to lose her meal ticket, because Gypsy was her meal ticket to all the free stuff, or these were men that were just way too old for her, or they had creepy stuff about them, and she was trying to protect her from them or
That's
whatever.
what
That could be a possibility too.
yeah, I feel that's what I think. I think that she has a psychological disorder. I think hypersexuality plays a big part in who she
Yes.
is. And I think
Yes.
it took place at a young age. And I think if you remember, like she claimed that her grandfather SA'd her. And when they did that interview with him, he said that she was coming on to me.
I
And
believe
I
that.
believe, so do I. And I believe at a young age she was very hypersexual. And that's why even, she'd sit there and say that I couldn't have Barbie dolls. And I believe that she was being inappropriate with them. And I really believe that that's
Yep.
part of the reason why she kept Gypsy away from people. She was a
Mhm.
danger to people even then with her hypersexuality. And then as she got
Right.
older,
because
It's
she
so
knew that's how
weird.
she could get things out of people, and that men would, weak men can turn into submissive silly putty very easily, if you just play the right moves and you use the right flirt. And again, the baby voice thing and everything else. It's like she kind of adapts to whatever that other person likes, or she'll introduce them to something that interests them, and then they get sort of hooked onto her in a way. So she knows her ways of hooking people into her, and I think she's had a lot of practice at this since, like you said, a young age. So, but again, like
Yeah.
as soon as I started hearing and seeing her, I saw right through her in 3 seconds. It's just like I would laugh if she ever tried anything like that on me, and I didn't know who she was. It's just like, yeah, I don't know who you think you're fooling here, but actual men that have some self confidence and have some standards are not going to fall for any of her antics.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so. I need them to stop. I don't know what they're seeing. I don't know what is the hold she has over them. Tell me
I
that.
think, I posted a lot. If I'm not sure how many of my videos you went through, but I really outlined it, the scenarios of. I think a big part of it is the damsel in distress,
Right.
aspect of it, where it's like, come save me. That's especially what
Would
you have
that
with
keep
Nick.
would that keep such a hold on them even after the fact? Like I believe she still has a hold
Yeah.
on Ryan. I
Because she
believe she still
promises
has a
these
hold
men
on
the
Nick.
world. Like, we're going to get married. I mean, look at how many men she promised kids with. She promised to have family. She wanted to marry. She wanted to live with. Like, look how many men she gave the same promises and same, narratives with. It's just like, she, like, essentially leads them on that they're going to have, like, that they're going to ride off into the sunset together and live happily ever after, just like one of her little Disney movies she watches. And she gets these men to believe it, and then it's just like, I just need these few things done first, just do that. And then again, it's just like they get hooked on her because she love bombs them. I think love bombing has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I see her
And
doing that.
it's the weak men she targets. I can tell. I think Ken is the first one that's not a weak man. He might be. I think he's more like her. I think he's more selfish, more self-centered, and I think he's got a little bit of a narcissism in him. And I think she finally met a match where it's like they truly are equals to some extent. And like I said, I don't see sadness. I see frustration out of Gypsy that she's not able to have a stranglehold on him like she did with the other men. And I think that's one of the reasons why she got knocked up as quick as she did, because he got away once, and she's like, "You're not getting away as easily this next time, because guess what? Now we got something attached to the both of us for the rest of our lives. That's going to be there whether you like it or not." And like I said, she's trying every trick in the book to get Ken to, submit to her.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's a big power struggle, and that's the part that I think I'm
Hey,
enjoying watching the most, like in a way, because it's like
what?
Gypsy is not being, given all the love and affection and attention at the drop of a hat like all the other men did, especially Ryan and Nicholas.
You're absolutely right. You just said the word submit and it clicked in my head that yeah, every other man would submit to her, but not him.
Yeah, and like I
Huh?
said, why are men attracted to her? It's a combination of factors: the damsel in distress, the sexuality aspect, with the manipulation aspects. Who knows what kind of stories and sob stories that she gives them? And it's just like they envision her as this beautiful woman that's locked up in a castle with a dragon, and they're gonna come slay the dragon and ride off with her in the sunset. I
Yeah.
think it's a combination of those factors, and she knows how to play that very well. And I think she gets to know these men, what their kinks are, and what their interests are, and she kind of, like a chameleon, adapts to those, interests, and that's how she gets these men, to fall for her, especially. And then she just love bombs them. She just like, oh, I love you. I can't believe, I had someone do this to me a couple of times when I was younger. It's like, when I was love bombed the first time, it's like it just like hit me like a tidal wave. I didn't know what was going on, but it really shook me. So it's like I can identify with because I was much weaker at that time because I was naive, I was younger, I was vulnerable. I didn't learn everything I had, like the knowledge that I have now. But back then, when I didn't have that knowledge and I was, more innocent, so to speak, you know what I mean? And I was vulnerable to something like that, and a more experienced girl approached me with these tactics, I didn't know how to handle it. And it took a lot of trial and error and a lot of self reflection and a lot of soul searching and a lot of, hindsight being 2020 thing to really look back and be like, wow, I got played hard. And then in the future, you look for those characteristics, and they're going to be red flags. You know what I mean? It's like at first you think you met your, your dream girl. That's probably what she convinces these men. It's like, I'm your dream girl and everything you ever wanted. She acts like, she's the product of like their fantasies. And then when they find out who she really is, then that's when the snake comes out and bites them and starts sucking on the blood. And, and then she sucks the life out of you. And then next thing you know, if you are able to get away from her alive, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's just like, that learning experience is going to hopefully help you in the future identify all the red flags from someone like Gypsy, so you can avoid another Gypsy.
Yeah, Magda had a question. She said, do you think that she will be unfaithful to Ken?
Yes.
I do too.
Yeah,
I think
because it's got nothing to do with her wanting to be faithful to anybody. It's got to do with who's useful to her at the time.
Yeah.
And there could very well be men that she's talking to right now. I mean, I have no doubt with her amount of clout and her global, notoriety that people are trying to hit her up, and Ken's probably not checking her phone every 5 seconds.
Trying to hit her up that really want to
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yes, absolutely.
That's nuts.
I know, and I mean, she's globally known. I mean, she's got worldwide recognition, not in a good way, but again, it's like, there's a sucker born every minute, and like I said, she does that damn.
So why wouldn't they?
Exactly. And whether it's the baby voice thing or the damsel in distress thing, or maybe they don't like Ken and they think they're a better man, and they're like, hey, I'm better than Ken. Come give me a chance. I guarantee men are hitting this woman up, and all she has to. And I think that's part of Ken's motivation too. I think he wants to meet a much nicer woman, a much more attractive woman. I think he's using the Gypsy situation as a way to get more clout, more recognition, and maybe even probably a financial aspect attached to it too. So I think again, I think in a way they're truly equals in that aspect, where it's just like they're both kind of narcissistic and there's a power struggle going on. More for Gypsy, because it seems like Ken doesn't really care one way or another, except for I'm hoping that the child is more the concern than Gypsy. But Gypsy seems to be more concerned with Ken than the child. Everything with the counselor is all about Ken, and I just want him to want this, and using the baby and the colic thing to get Ken to come back from whatever he's doing. So far, I see her using the baby as a stage prop to get Ken to stop what he's doing and pay attention to her, and I see him paying more attention to the baby than Gypsy, and that bothers her. So
you also gotta wonder if there's not resentment from Gypsy to the baby because of the fact that Ken loves that baby.
Yeah, again, my mind goes to a dark place. That's why I said there might be some Casey Anthony undertones to this, because it's just like, you know what I mean? Like if Aurora becomes more of the object of affection for Ken, I don't want to know, or I don't want to imagine or assume that she's going to take it out on the child directly or anything like that, because that would be like, I don't want to go there. You know what I mean? I just don't want to go into that scenario where it's just like, you know what? Yeah, she really would harm her own child for a man. It's just like, I don't want to think that, but I can't put anything past Gypsy. I mean, look at everything she's already done.
For a man, I mean, really think about it. It's the same relationship, just in reverse.
Right. And again, I think if the power struggle, again, I don't want to see a case where she ends up snapping, where it's just like, she's doing everything to try to get what she wants out of a situation, and it's just not happening. And then she just explodes into complete hysteria, and someone or something is going to end up, it being collateral damage from, whatever meltdown she has. So it's like, again, my biggest concern is always going to be that baby, and I think it's a dangerous power struggle between her and Ken when it comes to that aspect, because again, I see one way more invested than the other, and it's very obvious who is invested and who isn't, and it's gonna, it's all about how that person reacts to, having to deal with that, or having the frustration, not the sadness, but the frustration over the fact that they can't lock this particular person down. So psychologically, I think Gypsy is in a dangerous mindset, with Ken being an object of obsession, not love, but more of an obsession, because this is a man that's not dropping to his knees when she wants it.
Which she's used to. So that is
exactly
which is so unique in this situation, because I don't get it.
And did you hear what he just said? For some reason, he used the word Ken doesn't submit to her, and that's what keeps her going. And that really, I don't know why using that word made me realize, like, you know what? That's it. It's the
One,
thrill of the case. It's the thrill of
yep,
trying to get these men.
yep,
Yeah.
because
It's the
she
thrill of the
has a
chase.
grip on him.
It's the chase. She wants,
He's
you know what I mean?
unpredictable.
It's yeah, chasing the dragon. It's just like, when he keeps, anytime she gets closer, he gets a little bit further away, and then she has to keep chasing. That's what keeps her on the toes with this. And, that's where you see all the different antics come in. And keep in mind, everything that we're seeing on TV and with the show and what's being reported, that's only like a very small window into what's going on. It's like behind closed doors, we don't know the entire dynamics between them. So, it's kind of scary knowing what we do know and knowing what possibly could be 10 times worse, or, it's just a lot to think about. It's almost a rabbit hole that's overwhelming to think about.
No, that I totally agree. Like it is definitely a rabbit hole that is overwhelming because I mean there's no I hate to say this, but there's no good ending.
No, I don't think so either. I can't see any redemption. Like I said, I don't see any redeeming qualities. I don't see. I think a happy ending would be Gypsy ends up in custody again somehow. I think that would be the happy ending, and then someone very reliable in the family ends up with Aurora. To me, that would be a happy ending. Gypsy ends up screwing up. There's no collateral damage between anybody, and the child is removed from her custody, possibly Ken's as well, and someone in one of their families, maybe Ken's, maybe hers, that isn't Christy or one of them, uh, ends up, being able to give the child a proper chance in life instead of ending up with these two narcissistic, immature people that are playing power struggle games with each other. So, you know what I mean? As far as I see it, the kid is kind of being tossed around like a beanbag right now and being used like a prop. And, there's frustration on Gypsy's part that I hope doesn't, boil over.
Mm. It's such a sad situation. I just
It
hope.
is, and that's why we're all keeping an eye on this. You know what I mean? And she's got a lot of people keeping an eye on this, and I'm kind of glad it's being documented and it's being put out there in this way because you want to know what? It's like now next time if something happens, I don't think a DA's office and everybody that's in the system is just going to be able to throw everything under the rug like they did this last time between Nick and Gypsy's cases. I think now it's going to be a public outcry to finally, put Gypsy, give her the
First
actual
thing, yeah.
punishment she needs and the actual accountability that she needs because she's been enabled this whole time. That she got a slap on the wrist for the entire crime. She didn't even have to admit to a parole board that she was, accountable. Like, again, it's like, how was she able to go up to that parole board and basically downplay and retry her case in front of them? And they're just like, yeah, okay, you can go. You're rehabilitated. I mean, again, I don't think the same politics will be in play. In fact, it'll be quite the opposite this time because there's going to be such a public outcry. There's going to be a justice outcry. And you want to know what? I'm hoping that Gypsy's downfall will be Nick's godsend. That will actually trigger, something
I
for
think
Nick.
that's what I think will happen.
That would be
I
the
think
happy
that's his
ending.
best
That would be,
chance.
if Gypsy screws up and it's gonna get, it's gonna re-trigger the entire situation. It's gonna call everything into question of what happened in the first time around with the case, and then finally Nick is gonna get the spotlight he deserves to not only tell his side of the story and get everything out that he needs to say, but also get a proper, proper justice, which whether it's being released, going to a mental health facility, or a reduced sentence, whatever it is, I do think he deserves, some sort of punishment. But for the rest of your life, absolutely not.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's
I mean,
something. I
that would
think
be the
some,
happiest ending, in my opinion.
I
I
agree.
do think something will. I mean, she. It's the inevitable as far as her getting herself in trouble again, just because
Yes.
the. I mean, history repeats itself, and patterns and behaviors tell you what's going on. And I think her patterns and her behaviors have spoken huge
They have
volumes.
they've only escalated.
Yep. And I don't see anything different. I see those patterns and behaviors continuing to get worse, and everything that so far that I predicted that I thought I would see, I'm seeing and then some. So it's like it's worse than what
That's
I thought it was going to be.
that's the part for me that's crazy because it is worse than what I anticipated seeing.
Yeah, I agree.
Far worse than what I anticipated seeing. Which I mean, when you really think about it, that's crazy because how is it worse than what we anticipated seeing?
Well, I
Like
guess
we
it
did
comes
have
down to
higher
someone's
expectations.
capability. It's like, when you think you've seen it all, nope. Sometimes they've only just begun.
She's got
And
no
that's
self
exactly
control, and nobody can control her.
no.
Again, she has enablers. Keep in mind, there's people enabling this behavior, especially Christy and Rod,
Yeah.
and everybody around her. That's just like, oh, this is for Gypsy, and this money, oh, that's for Gypsy. We want to make sure Gypsy, 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 Gypsy. You know
Do
what I mean? It's
you
just like there's
think
no accountability factors in this. There's no point in this where anyone's ever looked at Gypsy and had her self-reflect, or there's nothing. I see not only that she engaged in this behavior, but she's got her whole family rallying behind it. When you have that environment and you have nobody holding her accountable, directly, then what would make her act any different, if not worse?
it's that they're not holding her accountable or they're just scared for their own lives?
You know what? That's a good point. I didn't even think of that. Maybe they are scared of Gypsy directly. That's a possibility, but at the same time, I think it wouldn't surprise me that there's a big financial motivation factor for the
Oh no
members of the
no.
family, especially Christy.
Well, that's greed when you're willing to risk it for some money. Because let's be frank,
Absolutely.
somebody's already taken someone's life. I mean, that would make me question and sleep with one eye open.
Sure,
You know,
absolutely. But I mean, we've already seen the behaviors of Christie and the way that she reacts to, critics and criticism, and everything else, and having people go online and bully people and report people and try to censor people and, all this other stuff. So it's just like, I think there's dynamics going in several directions from several people that act very similarly to Gypsy. So I think, again, with people like that around Gypsy, it's enabling her, not teaching her anything positive. And
Well, I
anytime
think
there's,
also you can't. The thing with Gypsy is you really can't teach her anything, right? Because with her having the traits that she has, those aren't traits where people change, and that's
No, the
just
true core of a
being
person does
realistic.
not change. You might be able to change like certain aspects or facets, or you might be able to hide it a little bit better, or maybe suppress some of the, symptoms of your true core. But the true core never goes away. And you know what? I do believe that her mom has a lot to do with from when she was growing up that helped her become the person she is today in a bad way. You know what I mean? Like, despite again, like I don't have Dee Dee's story because she's not here, but we do know that she was very much engaged in the frauds and the scams and the
yeah.
greedy part of this. You know what I mean? Having all of Gypsy's behaviors and using sexuality and all that other stuff, it's like I haven't seen. I mean, I don't know how. It's hard to get a hold of exactly who Dee Dee was because there's a lot of conflicting information. You don't really hear much from her side of the family, and then you know what I mean. It's just all about Gypsy now. They sort of forgot Dee Dee in the narrative. Dee Dee is again sort of being shown as like a stage prop of Gypsy's story and the narrative she wants. Like, oh, that's just the person that got me famous for unaliving. You know what I mean? And then now I want to do this. It's like she kind of wants to just put that behind her and be like, yeah, just forget all that. It's just like, no, no one's gonna forget all that. That's what you're known for, and there should be no reason you're getting famous over this. That's disturbing.
I think that Dee Dee was definitely like a scammer, so to speak, but more. It seems as though she didn't really start doing anything like that until after Rod left her. So I
Yeah, and
think it
also
was
after Hurricane Katrina and losing their house and all that stuff,
right.
I think that's when it started firing on all cylinders. Is when they were in a desperate situation. That's when I think maybe either Dee Dee herself or the both of them started to coordinate a plan of coming up with all the illnesses and exaggerating all of her medical problems for sympathy, for a house, and just and everything that we've seen as far as the frauds and scams go. And keep in mind, at the time of Dee Dee's death, there was an active investigation in not just Dee Dee, but Gypsy as well, into both of them. So I think Gypsy was aware of that as well, that they were going to be exposed sooner or later, if not soon. So I think
And
a lot of it.
part of me wonders if that's some of the catalyst to the crime.
That's what I think as well. I think maybe to silence Dee Dee in a way from giving her end of it, so that way, without that, without her mom there, she could just play victim, and there's no one that's going to be there to challenge her. She's just going to be like, oh no, look at little old me with the baby voice, and I look really young. My mom did all this. I didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Again, I think a lot of it came from the lawyers that put that in there. I think the original plan was she was going to run away with Nick, and maybe some intruder came in, and she was just gonna Nick was just gonna be a friend that she was crashing with or something. It's just like, oh, I went to a friend's house and someone killed my mom while I was gone. But then once they got the involvement, and they saw the correspondences, and they saw it was a coordination between her and Nick, that's when she had to throw Nick under the bus and victimize herself that way. Oh my God, this horrible guy that emotionally abused me, killed my mom. It's his fault, So she had to shift the goalposts as the truth kept coming out, and she has to run with whichever one is going to work out best for her. And obviously, it worked out for her. Nick went to jail for life, and she got a slap on the wrist. And as far as she's concerned, she could care less about him. And right there, that says she never cared about him in the first place. She was just using him.
Yeah, the whole situation honestly is very, very sad, and just the whole situation, it's hard to even look at it and feel like there was anything that was done the right way. But it's one of those things where I do think justice will be served, but it's just taking some time.
Yeah, and I think this is just, one of my reasonable predictions. I think it's going to be through Gypsy getting in trouble in some way again. I can't exactly say as to what. Hopefully, it's not going to be history repeating itself in any way. But something's going to happen where she's going to get exposed in some way. She's going to get in trouble again, and then that's going to, basically trigger Nick and his side of the story to come out. And then he's going to bring his information to the table. That's going to have a public outcry that's going to be strong enough to overcome because again, the politics that took place within the first trials of there was only one trial, but between the cases between Nick and Gypsy, they're not going to be able to pull that off a second time. Absolutely not. It's like this time, they're gonna, if anything, they're gonna have to go in front of the cameras and say, "Oh my God, we screwed up, and we didn't know about this." Of course, they're gonna try to justify it somehow, but you know what I mean. I think she's gonna get in trouble again. It's gonna trigger, Nick and his team to be able to get a proper appellate situation going, or a petition situation going, or maybe even some kind of clemency with the higher ups, where he's going to be able to get another sentencing hearing, be resentenced, be released, and then he'll get the justice he deserves finally, and as well as Dee Dee. And then finally, I think Gypsy will be fully exposed, and not just by us sleuths that are in the social media communities. I mean by mainstream media and the big heads that put her into this victim narrative in the first place. They're going to drop the victim narrative and be like, you know what, we were duped. This is who she really is, and you know what I mean. She is going to be canceled essentially.
To be honest, I feel like that's the only shot Nick has.
Yeah, I think that would be the best, the happy ending, I guess you could say, as happy
Yeah,
as that is, as that can
that would
be, I
be,
guess. And
yeah,
but
no,
as long as the baby is safe at the end of the day, that's my biggest concern, is that child
yeah,
is in a
I
safe
agree.
place, and that and that Nick will be able to get the justice he deserves, as well as Dee Dee. And then Gypsy will also get the She will have to pay for the accountability for once, instead of the little slap on the wrist that she got. I mean, she told Dr. Phil she doesn't deserve the time that she even got. She got the slap on the wrist. She's like, I don't even deserve to be in here for this long. She thought she deserved like a few months or something. I'm like, oh, like every bit of that interview just
George
pissed
says
me off.
she got too long. Yeah.
She's like, I deserve a punishment, and it also, just the fact that, well, I didn't hold a gun against his head and do it, make him do it. It's like, so you're mad at him that he did what you wanted him to do. Again, that just blows my mind. Like, trying to make it his fault because, well, he did what I requested him to do, and that's his fault. It's like, really? It's not your fault for requesting it in the first place? Okay, lady.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, that's one of the craziest justifications I've heard in my life. It's like, it's like, well, since I didn't physically put a gun to his head and have the power to end his life, he could have stopped me. It's like, why couldn't you stop yourself?
Right.
It's like this was your idea. Why was it up to Nick to make you stop? Why weren't you able to do it? It's like she was acting like she had no choice and like she was being like controlled by some outside force or something. It's like no, she had 2 years to think about this, 2 years to plan for all this, and 2 years to change her mind, and she didn't. And she knew what cards to play with Nick to submit to him or get him to submit to her and essentially carry out her dirty work, and then go down for it in the end. And like I said, she's very lucky that the politics that were in place, just the stars aligned for her when it came to the politics of the whole case, and her attorneys
Thank you for the
were able to
gift.
really get that narrative out there to all the right sources to make her look like the victim and give her some sweetheart deal while he was the scapegoat and he was there holding the bag, thinking that he saved the woman that he loved and that she was going to be there for him, and all she did was leave him in jail, left him behind, and then condemned him in the end. Brutal,
Yeah,
just brutal,
it's such a really, really sad situation. But
just
hope
being done dirty like that.
yeah, especially when you really loved someone. But thank you both for joining the panel. So I thought my daughter had her statewide testing today, but it's really tomorrow. So
Ah,
yeah.
gotcha.
Why did we get there early, super early today? I was like, what was I thinking?
I
She
had a
has
lot of fun. Yeah, Nina, thank you so much for
yes.
inviting me on this.
Thank
This
you
was this
for
was a
coming
lot.
on.
Yeah,
And
and
thank you
I follow
everyone in the
you.
chat.
Yep, I have some upcoming videos that I'm going to be putting up. The next one I'm going to do just really quick is I'm going to be putting up examples of where the masterminds of the crimes got the most time, and then all the hitmen and the people that actually were actually the muscle, like Nick was, got like the sweetheart deals or got the reduced time. It's like since Gypsy is trying to justify saying that, well, I didn't wield the weapon. It's like, well, let's take a look at all these other cases where the mastermind got the most time. You're the first case I've
I'm
seen in
excited
history
to
where the
see that.
mastermind didn't get
So am
the
I.
most time. So I'm
I'm
working
Yeah, I'm
on
listening.
that,
excited to
and
see that.
yeah, I'm gonna
Guys,
put
Because
that
I did a
together probably
comparison
tomorrow.
to her
guys,
and
and
Manson.
if you're not following Justin, do me a
Yeah,
favor, go give him a follow.
Yes,
yeah,
go
and
give Justin a follow.
Scouts Patterson is one of my old stage names from one of my old bands I just kind of came out with, but I'm gonna change it to my actual name, Justin Brodsky. So my username is gonna be Justin Brodsky when it lets me change it again. I think they give you like a week or to change it again or something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
Scouts Patterson was just a stage name I was using at first because I wasn't sure how this was gonna go. But now that it's become something, I'm just gonna use my regular name.
There you go. Well,
Yeah.
Justin, it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
great being on this live with you guys. Thank you so much for inviting me. And if anyone has any questions, like slide over to my profile, ask away, and I'll probably do like a reply video or something.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. Go follow him, y'all. But everybody have a great night. Thank you for all the
Yes,
gifts.
thank you so
Thank you
much,
for all the
Nina.
Thanks
taps.
for being here.
Yes.
Yep, you girls have a
Thank you.
great
Thank you.
you girls have a great night.
You
You
too.
too. Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you to getting me to 100K, y'all.
Oh, good.
Good night.